Well, y'all got quiet on your own. So welcome everybody to the June 9th, 2025 Troy City Council meeting. This evening, we're honored to have Pastor Debbie Sottle from Troy Church of the Nazarene provide us with our invocation. So please rise if you are able for that invocation and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you tonight for the mayor and the council that has given their time and effort to make Troy a better city to live in. We thank you, Lord, that they have prepared and are ready tonight for the things that are coming. And Lord, we just would ask you to bring peace to this room, that those who are presenting would be clear and concise, and that the council members would have your wisdom, that they would have your compassion, and that, Lord, they would seek justice for all, especially those who cannot fight for themselves. We ask you to be with everything that is done here tonight, that it would bring a peace and unity to this great city. And we will give you the thanks and the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. I'll call the June 9th, 2025 Troy City Council meeting to order and ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gunn? Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
We do have quorum this evening. I received notification from Mayor Pro Tem Gunn that he would be unable to attend this evening for a medical purpose, and we wish him well, of course. But I'll move resolved that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Mayor Pro Tem Mark Gunn at the regular City Council meeting of June 9th, 2025 due to a medical issue.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga, that we approve the resolution to excuse the absence of Mayor Pro Tem Mark Gunn. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. We do also have a late submittal related to an added report, so I need to make the motion resolved that Troy City Council hereby waives the rules of procedure for the City Council, rule number 4A, regular meeting agenda, to add an item O2B, Sylvan Glen 3 stormwater, onto the agenda.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve the resolution to waive the rules and add the agenda item, which is the O2B Sylvan Glen 3 stormwater report, onto the agenda. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. That late submittal was placed on our table, and I believe it's already online as well for O2B related to Sylvan Glen 3 stormwater. All right, first up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 3 this evening. 3 very different and exciting ones. So first up is C1, St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church Opa Fest presentation. So I'll ask our friends from St. Nick's to come forward.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Eve.
I'm Elena.
I'm Katarina. And I'm Anastasia.
We're the Greek Orthodox Opa dancers from St. Nicholas, and we have our festival coming up on June 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So on the 20th and 21st, it will be running from 4 to 11, and then on the 22nd, it will be running from 11 to 7. And we have our opening parade on Friday the 20th at 6 p.m., so we hope to see you all there.
At our festival, there will be a lot of opportunities for you guys to experience traditional Greek food, Greek music, dancing, shopping, and a lot more. It'll be a great way for all of you guys to immerse yourself in the Greek culture, and we hope to see all of you, your family, and friends there with us.
We brought some traditional homemade Greek pastries for you all to enjoy there out in the hallway, and thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
And we hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Thank you all. Looking forward to it. Everybody, make sure you check out Opa Fest, and congratulations on your graduation, Eve. right, next up is C2, a proclamation to honor the winners of the 4th Troy Public Library Card Design Contest. So I will ask those winners to come down and meet me at the podium. You come on this side, yeah, sure. I was going to say, I hope the designs are up on the screen still, otherwise it'll feel kind of funny. All right, well, I'm going to read this proclamation into the record, which is the proclamation to honor the winners of the 4th Troy Public Library Card Design Contest for Kanishka, Viha, and Christina. Which one's which? Who's who? Christina. Okay, very good. All right, whereas the Troy Public Library has 60,215 card holders across the city of Troy who have access to over 300,000 physical and digital resources, as well as hundreds of programs, speakers, and events per year. The Troy Public Library welcomes approximately 450 new library card holders per month, and there is a new Troy Library card holder in approximately there is a Troy Library card holder in approximately 66% of the households in Troy, who have checked out over 1 million items in the last fiscal year. And whereas the Troy Public Library Card Design Contest has revealed impressive local artistic talent over the years, while also giving the Troy community a platform in which to compete. In 2025, the Troy Library held its 4th Library Card Design Contest, where artists were challenged to submit a creative design in a medium of their choice for a limited run of new Troy Library cards in 3 age categories: youth, teen, and adult. And whereas the winner in the youth age group was Kanishka Shares Babu, whose design won over 100 others in her category. Kanishka is 12 years old and attends Boland Park Middle School. She has always been passionate about drawing since she was a child, starting with scribbles. Kanishka loves the TPL and believes it is one of the best places in Troy, with many books and kind staff members who are ready to help. Awesome. And whereas the winner in the teen age group was Viha Kini, whose design won over 10 other teen submissions. Viha, a 7th grade student at Boland Park Middle School, is 13 years old. Did you just finish 7th grade? Yeah, so you're a rising 8th grader. Even better, right? We're moving on. I lost my place. See what happens when I go off script. She loves books and art and has been drawing since the age of 4. She's always loved expressing ideas in art and would draw pictures for everything. Viha enjoys using the TPL's book collection and attending programs. And whereas the winner in the adult category is Christina Lee, whose design won over 24 other entries. Christina has always been drawn to art ever since she could hold a pencil and drew all over the walls in her house as a child. When she saw this opportunity to share her love of the library, she knew she had to enter. Christina often visits the TPL's children's section with her 2 kids who enjoy the toy rotation and how there's always something new whenever they visit. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy hereby congratulate Kanishka, Viha, and Christina for their winning designs in the 4th Library Card Design Contest. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council thank the winners of the Library Card Design Contest for showing the breadth of creativity within our community. All residents are invited to visit the Troy Public Library and swap out existing cards for a winning design, or to apply for a new card if you do not have one, to continue to make the Troy Public Library one of our busiest and most cherished public institutions. So these proclamations are presented this 9th day of June 2025. I have one for each of you. They're signed by myself as the mayor, and all members of our Troy City Council have signed it, so I'm going to have one to you. You're very welcome. One for you. You're very welcome. And one for you. And then let's see if where'd Cindy go? She's over here. Let's see if we can get a picture. Let's go over here. We have our library director and our assistant director right here too, so they're excited. It's a great night for everybody. Thank you all very much for shaking hands. Congratulations. Of course, I was looking down the whole time. I didn't get to see the designs on the screen, so I'll have to go back and watch. Next up is C3, a presentation of schematic design and opinion of probable cost for the new library facility. Shifting right into the good stuff. And my understanding is Peter Bullock, the President and Director of Design for HBM Architects, will be presenting. Emily, do you have any? You're not introducing anything? No. Okay. Welcome back, Peter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you for your time this evening. Very excited to present the design for the new library project, and I want to share that with you today in kind of a high-level presentation, open to any questions, comments that you might have, and talk through that. The two parts, as the Mayor mentioned, are essentially the design and then the probable costs. As the Mayor mentioned, I'm Peter Bullock. I'm president of HBM Architects. My practice focuses on library design. We're in our 50th year, and we work with libraries all over the country. It's a very, very rewarding project type to work on. We're very fortunate to be working on that, and I think members of council and mayor, I think this is a great project for this community, and every time we get engaged with communities in this magnitude for these type of projects, it is an overwhelming success. So that's what we hope to bring to the project and to this body this evening. A lot of the work that we did starting in early of this year for the last 4 months is really based on narrative of design expectations, a demonstration of need, an assessment of scale and spaces, and then conceptual renderings of what the building might look like, how it might function, where it's sited, and some of the what is referred to in the industry as schematic design development work that can lead to an independent cost estimator to assess the project and then assign the cost required for the project. The first couple of slides in this presentation are narratives describing the work. I'm going to hit on just some highlights which are very important because I believe every library needs to fit within the community it's in and needs to be special and unique to that community. We have a building that's going to be a multi-story building, and it's organized very strategically with different levels as you rise up from first floor through the third floor. The first floor being a very active floor, very community-generated use of the space. The uppermost floor is more of a tranquil space, a more quiet space, and then the second level is really where the core library material will be housed and is that middle zone that kind of brings the whole building together as a unique, holistic building. A lot of the design is focused around certain things that make for great spaces of public buildings, material and light. We have a lot of glass on this building that allows for transparency so that there are views into the building. As people walk by, they'll have no mistaking that it's a library. It's a place that I can go to and that want to go to. And then within the building, a lot of great natural light, places to sit and contemplate and read and work. It's also a building that is designed with a type of construction called mass timber. Sited where it is on city property, there's a very nice natural wetland buffer between Civic Center Drive and the building, so we are engaging the building in kind of a natural environment. The wood in the mass timber will provide a very rich and warm and inviting type of space. The landscaping and the connection to other civic buildings will be very carefully woven together to create a destination that is really the center and the heart of this community. A couple of things in the design philosophy: a building that's very transparent, very open, and has an honest sense of materiality. These three components will really make for a very functional, flexible, and safe building for your community. So that being kind of the initial kind of explanation of the design, I want to share just a little bit of the diagrammatic relationships of the building. There is one color on this slide that you really don't see, and it's a much bigger rectangle. It's the light blue color. It's the first floor of the library. That's that very active animated space, about 40,000 square feet. Then the second floor is the darker blue, the lighter blue rather, and that's 27,000 square feet. That's the main part of the collection. And then the top floor, third floor, the darker blue, is 22,000 square feet. And as I mentioned initially, it is zoned so that there is a distinction between the activities on the levels and then also from a more louder to a more quieter type of space within the library. As many know from prior presentations and discussions, the library site is across Civic Center Drive from the current library on city property, adjacent to the community center. This site is really well suited for the building in the sense that it will be very visible as people come in along Civic Center Drive. It's sited along a nice natural buffer of the wetland. It will link the skating park, the Civic Center, the other civic destinations that are in this core region of this property. In fact, we are making a strong relationship through the site with pathways that really do link the buildings from entry to adjacent building entries. There are going to be site amenities that are beyond the library program space for the community to use, outdoor programming space, walking trails. To the north part of the stormwater detention and management, we are proposing a pond feature. And then some of the more utilitarian functions of the site, 250 parking spaces, particularly for the library, but designed in a way that's homogeneous to the adjacent parking areas, and having an access lane from Civic Center Drive that is very direct and intuitive to use as people enter the site, whether they're going to the Civic Center or the library building. Of course, the library building you see here in the blue, kind of purple form, is at the center of this development. This is the view as you come north along Civic Center Drive. You can see the community center in the background there. So this is the wetland buffer that I mentioned, and our library building will be placed just to the east of that buffer. As you come along Civic Center Drive, you will get glimpses of the building. It will be a three-story building, as I mentioned, so it will be very obvious that there's a destination here, a place to arrive at. And so I'm going to share with you a number of renderings that we've created about the building. These were done in concert with the building committee and talking through the program, the use of the space, some of the ideas of what we wanted to try to create as a iconic element for the city of Troy. And so this image here is from the southwest corner. That's that kind of similar point I just showed of the wetland area. We do, as I mentioned, intend to have some walking trails that will link these components together. This is one that would come from Civic Center Drive towards the library building and have an entrance portal onto this building from the west side of the building. So if somebody were walking in the complex here at Civic Center, they can arrive across through this very nice wetland natural environment and arrive at the building. In these images of the exterior, you see the notion of a very strong and elegant structure, and that is the mass timber, the heavy timber wood structure. And then, as I mentioned early in the intro, a lot of transparency with the building, a lot of great glass for natural light and views in and out of the building. This is moving a little bit more north on Civic Center Drive, looking south. This is another passage across the wetland area that could arrive by walking to the library. Here on the north end, you start to see some of the elements beyond the interior program space of the library depicted. We have some outdoor program space on grade off of the library, as well as a second floor, a roof terrace that could provide additional space for programming, for activities, and community use. Shifting a little bit to the palette of the building as proposed, again in discussions with the committee, we have on the left a couple inspiration photographs. These were used to suggest, before anything was even drawn, some of this materiality. And as you see on the top left, exterior building form that is made up of mass timber. On the interior, that same structure is expressed in the beams and the columns. A lot of great transparency with the use of glass. And the components on the right side of the slide are the tonal kind of coloration and texture of the exterior building material components. This view is from the parking lot, approaching the building from the east. These two entrances, the one I shared with you just in the prior slides, coming across the wetland, and this entrance here coming from the parking area, are aligned for very, very clear and understanding organizational maneuvering through the site. And if we were to come out of the library and continue this passage that comes towards us on the screen, we would arrive at the Civic Center. So a very deliberate linkage of these buildings in terms of their arrangement of space and form. This is along the parking, to the right, the parking area for the library and the east edge of the library building. A view from the terrace looking back into the building. This is that space could be used for many different types of programs and activities, community functions, a library space. And inside on this level is the second floor, which is the main location of the material for the library. We're going to shift a little bit to the plan discussion, showing basically how the library is laid out and would function. As I mentioned, the two entrances on the west and the east, the parking to the east, the wetlands to the west. This interstitial space between those two entries is the common area. It's mainly a space where you could have a lot of material on display, a social gathering space, a space that can orient people as they come to the library, a space where people can be greeted by staff. There's a service point here that is in front of the staff service components that is basically the south edge of this building on the first floor. And as we would progress into the northern part of the building, this is the youth service or children's area program of the library. It is zoned from older children to younger children. It is zoned with different organization of shelving for proper material placement. And then culminating in the corner on the north edge is a component that is often referred to as a play, learn, and grow space, an interactive learning space for children and caregivers, parents, to explore and have fun and learn at the library. Some of the eastern edge spaces are utilitarian restroom service to the building, but we have a cafe and some additional meeting and programming spaces on the west end, on the east end there. On each of the floors, there's a main communicating stair that will run all three floors. It's a monumental stair, open stair. It is meant to also help with an intuitive use of the building. As people come in, they will know that there's much more than the first floor. They will have visual access to the second floor and the third floor. And also there is an elevator and full ADA access for everyone to all floors of the building. As I mentioned, the second floor is the main adult collection, the main majority of material housed on the second floor. That's in the light green component. Young adult and teen area is on this floor, and then the salmon colored spaces are some staff support spaces, and in particular, a maker space. Many of you may have heard Creation Lab or maker spaces, a space where a lot of different things can happen and will change over the course of the year as things come up, and it'll be a very flexible and usable space. Also, as we start to see on the second floor, a lot of small group study spaces. These are glassed in, kind of semi-private spaces where 2 to 4 to 6 people can meet in collaboration or in individual kind of aspects. The Troy Library is unique in many libraries in the sense that almost every single table and chair is used almost on a daily basis. There is a high interest in learning in your community, and so to have not only table and chairs spread out through the library, but to have access to small group meeting rooms is really, really important. So you start to see those here on this floor. And then on the third floor, you see them again, as well as the remainder of the adult collection and large meeting space that's subdividable into 2 meeting rooms. And again, staff support services on this level. Should mention on the second, I'm just jumping back to the second floor, this would have access to that roof terrace, that outdoor program space. And to jump a little bit ahead, I think in further development of the design, we may want to consider, because at the last joint council planning meeting, we heard a lot about needing maybe more space. This is an opportunity where we can move the edge of the building wall to kind of encompass some of that roof terrace as usable interior space at little less cost than if we were adding just all new space to the building. So the terrace is really amply designed now in its square footage, and I think that at this early stage, we will have an opportunity to kind of right-size that, and if we can expand in program space, we will do so. So moving to the interiors, some renderings we want to share with you of the space. These are mood boards, much like the exterior palette I shared a moment ago, to give you the sense of feel of the color, the textures, the elements inside the building. We're looking at this as more of a kind of natural tonal kind of base. So a lot of rich wood use. The mass timber design inherently allows for that. It's a rich, warm material. It also is a material that is good choice because you don't have to add more to it to finish it. Its structure, its core is the wood structure and the actual finish of the building as well. We will put some color in very distinguished areas, maybe in some flooring, furnishings, and have a building that really relates both exterior and interior in terms of its finish and color and design. The interior of the children's area has the opportunity to get a little more vibrant, some more powerful pops of color, and some of the more featured spaces for that play, learn, and grow, or that kind of spend time at the library in the children's area. So some interior renderings to show. This is the entrance common area. This is a space where people can come together and social gather and look for assistance with staff service point right at the entry. A lot of material on display, whether we do those with castered movable display components or tables that are more like a bookstore type of a house of material rather than traditional shelving that give the feel of more browsable and kind of interesting kind of searching through of material. And from this space, if we turned 90 degrees, you'd see another seating area for social gathering in this main kind of common area, but a glimpse of the main communicating stair, the monumental stair that would rise up through all three floors of the building. Beyond, you start to see the entrance to the children's space. So that would be a zoned space that would be controlled. We would have access points to that for safety and security, but very transparent and open so that everybody could really keep an eye on what's happening in the library. Moving deeper into the children's area, this is a view of the play, learn, and grow area. A lot of things that would develop in further stages of design are not shown here. Those are elements that would be hands-on interactives, but this is giving you a sense of the power of this space in terms of the feel, the look, and the use. On the left, you see the children's collection of material on lower shelving. The main element here is a space that could be used for programming, for communication from children's to the adult space on the second floor. Different types of programs can happen along this main learning stair. On the second floor, this is a glimpse, mainly in the adult collection, the more traditional shelving that happens on this floor, very interspersed with different types of seating mixed throughout the building for people to work, study, social gather, with really great views out into the wetland areas, the natural environment that is just beyond the building. Another view of that second floor, the social seating area. Again, I mentioned the idea that a lot of there's very few times in the library where there is a table and chair that is not occupied, so to provide space for everyone in the community to have a space to work. We would have distinguished areas like you see here for that. And all of this kind of work that has developed over the last 4 months does come with a technical aspect to it as well as a cost parameter. And so today, I want to share with you where that estimate of cost is arrived. One thing of important note is that we utilized a third-party estimator for the work. So in other words, we provided all the diagrams, drawings, renderings, plans to that company, and they did a takeoff of square footage costs. They worked with tradesmen in the industry and produced a cost estimate that you see here. So there's two parts really to a project that is defined as hard cost and soft cost. The hard costs are more related to truly the bricks and mortar of a project. The soft costs are more things like furnishings, loose elements, and things that are getting you to a total project cost. So bricks and mortar plus everything else that goes into the library gets you to the full total project cost. And that estimate today is $75,080,872, and it's broken down between the hard costs and the soft costs as you see here. These estimates were produced with thinking about today's economy, this region, looking at the tariff impacts that's already surfaced in a lot of the elements in the building trades and even beyond the building trades. For instance, every piece of furnishing that we were going to put into this building has metal in it, whether it's shelving or chairs, and all of those have had impacts. And so I believe very firmly that our cost estimator has got a good grasp of the market. There are some other things to consider, though, that are maybe a little bit more unknown, and that is future impacts of tariffs. So there is the notion in the industry to start planning for a contingency for tariff impact that you see here as item 1. If there was an opportunity to enhance a couple of components within the library design right now, the first one would be that interactive learning element, as I mentioned, is not shown or depicted yet in the first floor children's area. That would be a great opportunity to enhance, as well as some of the outdoor furnishings beyond what we've considered in the design so far. And then the last being the notion that the idea of needing space. We're at 90,000 square feet right now as a planned project, and really the target is 100,000 square feet. So we were asked to produce the cost estimate to then project forward with two levels of cost for additional square footage, perhaps. If we were to arrive at the 10,000 square feet more of additional square footage, that's about $8 million. And as I mentioned in the slide when we were talking about the terrace, there is potential to expand the building footprint by encompassing the terrace a little bit, which those dollars are already in the project. So instead of a $10 million or a $8 million for 10,000 square foot, we might be able to get more square footage for a lesser square foot cost by doing that. And I think that would be a very good thing to consider as we move forward. The last thing I'll share before moving on to questions, comments, is a project schedule. This is a tentative projection, mainly with the idea of November 5th bond proposal. With success there, we would have 5, 6, and 7 would be the remaining portions of design, which would start right away in November, December, and go until January of 2027, at which time we could go into a bidding period and possible construction start in April of 2027. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mayor, and
thank you.
Answer any of your questions.
Peter, I appreciate it. Thanks for the thorough presentation, the updated schematics, and of course the cost estimate, which we didn't have when we had our joint meeting with the Planning Commission, but I appreciate it. I know all of us do, seeing what's changed, what's progressed, and to my fellow council members, later in the agenda, we're scheduling a special meeting on this very topic, is my understanding from city management, for June 30th. So where we'll really dig into a lot of these questions and talk about the costs and talk about what it means for our community, I think. But that said, if there's burning questions right now that feel appropriate, I'm happy to have anyone ask. I think we're looking forward to our June 30th meeting,
okay,
where we can digest some of it a little more and go through this cost estimate. We received it last week, and we've been going through it. But does that sound fair for everybody?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Actually, quick question for city management. This presentation will be uploaded to the website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. We don't have any carryover items this evening, so we move on to public hearings. We do have one this evening. E1 is the Plan Unit Development, PUD 021, JPLN 2024-0012, Proposed Somerset West Concept Development Plan and Preliminary Development Plan for Phase 1A, north side of Big Beaver, west side of Coolidge, 3100 West Big Beaver, PIN 88-20-19-476-002, 88-20-19-476-003, and 88-20-19-430-004. Section 19, presently zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development Zoning District. That'll be introduced this evening by Ben Carlisle from Carlisle Worman, our planning consultant. Hi, Ben.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. Ben Carlisle, Carlisle Worman Associates, really pleased to be here with you tonight. This is a culmination of about 2 years of work, maybe a little less than 2 years of work that we've been working with the Frankel Forbes team to bring this in front of you tonight, so I'm very pleased to present this tonight. I have a rather brief introduction, kind of hitting the main highlights. I know that Mr. Forbes has a much more detailed presentation. We'll go into a little more of the design schemes and some of the details. So mine is more of just a simple overview of the project. But before I start, I think it's important to talk about what is a PUD. It's important to note that this site is already currently zoned PUD. It was the Pavilions PUD that was done about 15 years or so ago. But what a PUD is it's a type of development set forth in the zoning ordinance that allows for more flexible use of the zoning ordinance and tools than traditional zoning regulations. Essentially, it's a site plan attached to rezoning. But what it does is allows a significant amount of flexibility in the design and use of the zoning ordinance. So you can alter setbacks, lot sizes, height, et cetera, to have a more creative project that would be traditionally allowed under traditional zoning. It also allows for better integration of land uses and mixed-use opportunities. In our traditional zoning ordinance and in our zoning ordinance, we have districts that have set uses, and it's difficult sometimes to incorporate a variety of uses under one zoning district. So a PUD allows for a variety of uses, and that's what the applicant tonight is presenting to you. In addition, a PUD really follows the master plan, and it's intended to meet what the master plan calls for that particular area. It is designed and guided by an overall plan, which I'll go over tonight, that talks about land use, circulation, density, et cetera, and that's all laid out in the CD plan, which I'll present to you tonight. And lastly, there is supposed to be a public benefit component of this. In exchange for zoning flexibility, the applicant is to present a public benefit to the city in exchange. So parks, trails, open space, infrastructure improvement, economic development reasons, et cetera. So the applicant can go into more detail about what their proposed public benefit is, but that's a key component of a PUD. There are 3 steps to the adoption of a PUD. The first we're going to talk about tonight is the concept plan, and there's 2 components to a concept plan. The first is a concept development plan, and that is a planning document. So all those colorful pictures and graphics and maps, that's all part of the concept development plan. And that talks about land use and layout, circulation, open space, height, et cetera. Running concurrently with that is the legal document, and that's the PUD agreement. So that's the legal document that outlines timelines, responsibilities, and conditions of approval. They work together. You can't have one without the other, and so they work together in terms of the CDP gives the visualization of what it's going to look like, and the PUD agreement is the legal terms of how it gets done. For a concept plan, the Planning Commission is the recommending body, and I'll go through what the Planning Commission did recommend on this project. And ultimately, the City Council, you are the approving body for the concept development plan. So that's where we're at tonight, is the concept development plan. Step 2 is a preliminary development plan. So that's similar to what we call a preliminary site plan. Now, typically a site plan is approved by the Planning Commission. However, for PUDs, the Planning Commission is a recommending body on a site plan. It is also the council's responsibility to adopt the preliminary development plan. And once the preliminary development plan is adopted, the final step is the final development plan, and that's similar to a final site plan, and that's reviewed and approved administratively. So the Planning Commission's role in this process is they're the recommending body on the CDP and the preliminary site plan, and the council's approving body on the CDP and the preliminary site plan. With regards to this development, it's 40 acres. It's located at the northwest corner of Big Beaver and Coolidge. It's the former Kmart headquarters that we're all familiar with. It is controlled, like I said, by PUD. It's called the Pavilions, and there's 28 acres that are south of Cunningham, and there are 12 acres that are controlled by consent judgment, which are located on the north side of Cunningham. Again, the applicant tonight is seeking an amendment to that existing PUD. The concept plan that was presented to the Planning Commission includes the following. It's a maximum of 500,000 square feet of office, 300,000 square feet of retail, 250 room hotel plus amenities, and 750 residential units. These are the maximums that would be built on this site. If you look at these numbers, they're very similar to the approved Pavilions PUD. There's some changes with the switching up the retail and office just based on current market conditions, but for the most part, the entire square footage is very similar to what the Pavilions PUD was approved for. The area outlined in red is the area that is going to be controlled by the University of Michigan. It's approximately 17 acres. Most of it is on the south side of Cunningham, but you'll note there's approximately a 5-acre parcel at the northwest corner, north of Cunningham. And the anchor of this development is a 200,000 plus square feet medical facility that's located, you can see in the center it says maximum height 100 feet. That's the U of M facility. And it's going to be the anchor and the largest U of M medical facility in Oakland County. So that's the anchor of the site. You'll notice on the front end and closest to Big Beaver, those are mixed-use developments that will include a mix of office, retail, and potentially hotel uses. One of the items that was under discussion with the Planning Commission is that area outlined in yellow. Under the original concept plan shown by the Planning Commission, that was intended to be buildings with the parking decks in the middle. Due to cost issues with the University of Michigan, the parking deck was pulled and they're put in just surface parking. That was a point of discussion the Planning Commission had a lot of discussion on. We do note that in talking to Mr. Forbes, there is a future plan to develop that area in yellow for future uses, including some parking decks, as well as additional facilities for U of M. They're not at the point right now to promise that as part of the first phase, but it is a future phase, and I believe Mr. Forbes has some plans to show tonight of what that would eventually be. In addition, one of the things that the Planning Commission considers as part of the concept development plan is a use diagram. So every parcel on the site has its own list of uses. This includes office, retail, hotel, residential, and parking. Again, those 17 acres are controlled by U of M, and so they're outside of the scope of the CDP and the PUD ordinance. But again, the intent is to develop the U of M facility as the anchor to the site, and then a medium density mixed use development on the periphery, and especially along Coolidge and Big Beaver with those square footage allowances that were indicated earlier. The first phase is intended to be the U of M facility, which is that kind of brown color right in the middle. The second phase under discussion would be the U of M parcel to the northwest to accompany the medical facility in the center of the site, as well as build out those 2 outlots in front on Big Beaver. Those are intended to be restaurant or retail uses to be determined, but those would be part of the second phase. The third phase would be that kind of the light yellow color, which is a mixed-use building on the corner, on the southwest corner of the site. And then the final phases would be the parcels to the northeast, north of Cunningham, and that at the southeast, located at Coolidge and Big Beaver. One of the items that came up was a strong discussion on the transition for those 3 parcels to the north of Cunningham. The Planning Commission did discuss this, and there was a neighbor who I believe is in attendance tonight that did provide written communication about their request for the transition area. The Planning Commission did discuss it, and what the protections that were put in at this point is that the concept plan shows an increased building setback. If this were zoned what it would normally zone, which would be Big Beaver, we would have a 40-foot or so foot setback on the rear property line. They are showing or proposing 100 feet setback from that northern property line. That's consistent with what was approved as part of the Pavilions PUD was 100 feet. I do note that the consent judgment has a 140-foot setback, so that would maybe a point of discussion is the 100 feet versus the 140 feet. But the 100 feet was what it was approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. In addition, we do note that the 2 eastern parcels would also be reviewed as part of a preliminary development plan. So the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council would review that preliminary development plan. At that point, we can discuss screening, setbacks, landscape, berming, et cetera. In addition, those 3 parcels are controlled by consent judgment, which the city is a party to. So ultimately, it would have to be amended for the consent judgment for anything to be developed on those 3 parcels. Part and parcel to the concept development plan is phase 1 of the preliminary development plan. And the purpose of phase 1 is to get the site prepped for redevelopment. So phase 1 would include grading the site. Currently the site needs some additional grading due to the parking lot locations and then the building location of the former Kmart. Install the private roads. Those are those kind of dark gray lines. Those are the private roads that kind of set up the building pattern of the site, as well as locate the underground utilities on the site. And the purpose of this would be to set the site up again for U of M to start building their medical facility in the center of the site. We do note that all the lots outside of what University of Michigan is purchasing would come in for individual preliminary development plan to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council for approval. So all those parcels that are outlined outside of what U of M is purchasing would come in as a separate phase for the Planning Commission and you all to view and approve as part of future development. And again, the Planning Commission is a recommending body on the preliminary development plan. Planning Commission considered this at 3 meetings. One was a concept meeting, and then they did hold a public hearing on April 22nd. At that time, the item was postponed to allow the applicant to address various Planning Commission comments. The applicant did resubmit the application, and on May 13th of this year, the Planning Commission did approve the concept plan and the phase 1 preliminary site plan with a recommendation of 9-0. And there were no conditions placed upon that recommendation. So again, in summary, Mr. Mayor, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the concept and preliminary site plan 9-0, and Council tonight is asked to consider the Planning Commission recommendation and hold a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ben. Recognizing there's a presentation coming from the applicant, is there any questions specific to Ben that would relate to that presentation or might be answered best by Ben at this point? Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I think these are best answered by Ben at this point. So this relates to the property north of Cunningham, to that north property line related to the 100 feet buffer. So I spent time, I drove it, I ran down there yesterday. What is it currently? Is it 100 feet right now?
So if I can use my pointer here. So
what is right now?
Right now, under the consent judgment, it's 140 feet. Under the pavilion's PUD, it's 100 feet. So there's inconsistencies there. As being shown on this graphic here, these building outlines, these are 100 feet. This is 100 feet from this property line. This is further than 100 feet, but they're proposing 100 feet from this northern property line.
So I think what I'm trying to ask is when you go out there and you stand there, and there's the start of the old crumbling parking lot, and then you see, the rolling berm and the homes. I want to know at what point, when does their property line end, and when does the developer's property start? Can you answer that?
I don't have the answer to that right now yet.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, that's helpful for me to make a decision. It's helpful to know what I just saw and to understand that. Okay.
During the presentation, I can figure that out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, Ben, those 100 feet or 140 feet, that relates to the building line, not the parking lot line, right?
Correct.
So there's no building there now.
Right,
So
exactly. That's what I'm trying to visualize. Like, what do I see right now versus what might be, so.
This outline here, that's the building footprint outline, essentially.
I guess an additional question?
I guess a follow-up question is on 1A, that's the phase 1, right? So what's the distance there from that building? Is that still 100 feet? Or?
That's well over 100 feet. I do know that this is one of the parcels that is intended to be acquired by the University of Michigan.
Okay.
And so they would not be required to come in for preliminary site plan approval. So the city really would have no role in determining what the use and what the location of the building would be on that particular piece of property.
We'll go back to you, Councilmember Chamberlain.
One more quick question, because that makes me ask. So just to clarify, are we guaranteed that 100 feet, or given what University of Michigan can do, they don't have to abide by on their lot?
I'm gonna cede to the city attorney on this one, but from my understanding, the city does not have control over parcels that are developed by a corporation such as University of Michigan. So essentially, the parcel outlined in red is exempt from local building and zoning control. The two parcels on the right, they're would be under the CDP in this PUD. And so if tonight, part of the discussion, if it's set at 100 feet, they would be required to be 100 feet. If the planning committee or the council wants more than 100 feet, that would be a point of discussion with the applicant tonight.
City Attorney Bloom, did you want to?
I would just add that right now there is a consent judgment, however, and University of Michigan is required to comply with that. But the agreement does allow for amendments to that, and you know, so as of right now, without an amendment, it is 140 feet.
Go ahead.
And if it's amended, do we have a say in that? Does that come back to us?
Under the agreement that is proposed, you are almost required to agree to any amendments to the consent judgment that are reflective of the CDP that's approved.
I actually have a question for you, City Attorney Bloom, that I hesitate to ask because I don't like asking lawyer questions from the table, but it's going to come up, and it's come up a little bit already. My understanding from the presentation so far is that the consent judgment has 140 feet buffer as part of it, but the PUD that was approved for the pavilions was only 100 feet. Does one trump another? How can they be conflicting, I guess, is my question.
Again, never was developed. The previous CDP and the PUD was never developed. So I believe that it was anticipated that there would be a consent judgment amendment,
Which the city would have been required to support because of in the consent judgment, because of what you said earlier about CDPs. The city is. Now I'm stumbling on my words, but what you said before, you want to say it again? Do you know what I'm talking about? You said my understanding was that if the CDP is approved for one thing, the city is obligated to support.
Under this agreement, I am not certain that that was under the pavilions PUD, which is the predecessor.
Okay. Sorry. Additional questions for Ben? Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
I have another one. So thinking of PUDs, and the ones I've worked on, just for example, I'm just wondering, do you know, Ben, in the city, I'm thinking of when you have PUDs and you have R1B next to it, in this case, what we're talking about, there's R1B, residential north of there. In Troy, with existing PUDs, what sort of density do you have next to R1B zoning?
It really varies. I mean, the point of remembering this particular site obviously was a very heavily used headquarters with a lot of parking, a lot of activity on it. There was an approved, like I said, there was approved PUD, which is very similar to what is being proposed in front of you tonight. And it really is a case-by-case basis, but what we try to ensure is that there's adequate buffer and screening in between transitional land uses. And so you see this as a conflict that we see often on Big Beaver, where you've got highly dense developments on Big Beaver that abut single-family residential. And so the point of discussion tonight is that 100 feet adequate to accommodate that R1B, or should there be additional accommodation to consider that? But that being said, if this were zoned, if this were zoned what it would normally be zoned on the Big Beaver corridor, there's a 40-foot setback in the Big Beaver district. So the proposed 100 feet is more than what would be allowed under the Big Beaver zoning. But the question is that adequate enough under these circumstances?
And just to say, the reason why I asked this question, I know the PUD, that was the Robertson Brothers we did on Long Lake, starting to go up. I really appreciated that the area that abutted, it was R1B or R1A, they made a choice to use the least dense option of all that they were building in that PUD right next to that, to single family residential. So that's why I was wondering, because I don't know of another PUD that I have approved that had like really high density right next to R1B.
So if you can just turn to the screen, you'll notice that typical with planning and zoning, you try to have the most density fronting on the main arterial. So if you actually look, these buildings are pretty dense. It's 120 feet height maximum, 140 feet. It steps back as you go back and transition in the site. So this gets down to 40 feet at this location, and this is actually supposed to be 40 feet in this location. So they are lower in height than what was being approved or supported on Big Beaver itself. So there is a transitioning as you go back, and the setback approved is pretty much over twice the buffer, is over twice what the maximum height of the building would be. And that's generally a pretty good rule of thumb for a buffer.
Councilor Hodrick.
Somewhat related, and to help, you're thinking about what are other projects, give me other comparisons. I think, and I appreciate my colleague trying to wrap her head around that. The Monarch on Big Beaver, which was never built, that butted right up to our R1B. And I don't recall the specific feet, but I think somebody mentioned to me it was 100 to 120 feet. And that building was proposed to be, that was a fairly tall building.
Taller than 4 stories, if I remember correctly.
And so just to give you a reference point and that was approved, there was a lot of excitement about that, and the economy tanked and it never went in. So just to give you another sense on Big Beaver and the buffer, to give you a little bit of a vantage point of, that was a past council, past planning commission, I realize, but I remember the discussion of that then, and maybe look up and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going on what somebody mentioned to me may not be point of fact.
I could look it up.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ben right now? All right. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
My understanding is Mr. Forbes is presenting next as the applicant.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, Rebecca, just a point of clarification. The property line today is about at the top of the berm. And today, that berm area is only about 20 feet in depth.
Okay.
So that's about the scale you're looking at today. Okay? Just a little point of clarification. First of all, thank you for having me. We've been working with your team, the city, Frank and his team, Ben and his team, and Lori and her team, and everybody for probably the last 2 years. And as you know, going back to the beginning of time, this was the front of the Detroit News back in 1996 when we opened Somerset North. And we built a 700-foot long skywalk that is really one of a kind. And the Detroit papers at the time, they published a joint paper, the Free Press and the Detroit News, and they termed Troy downtown Michigan. Because in reality, we are downtown Michigan from a shopping perspective. Almost 50% of our stores, it vacillates from time to time, but between 45 and 50% of our stores are their only stores in the state of Michigan. We are one of one in this community. Mr. Frankel, my partner, his family has been stewarding this project since the 60s. We joined forces in the 90s, and we've been ambassadors to this community. This project is the gateway to the city of Troy. We take that very, very, very seriously. It sets the tone to city architecture, scale, public space, design, curation, and management. And that's something that we do and take serious each and every day of our lives. Somerset today would probably rank in the top 10 shopping centers in the United States of America in terms of sales per square foot. We have no carts in our shopping centers. We have no kiosks in our shopping centers. We invest in our shopping centers year after year after year in our parking deck, in our mall, in our common areas, and most importantly, in our retailers, and in community and community activity. We are a community asset. It's no different than a public library, and we view ourselves as such. And we view this as a complete partnership. So as we look at doing and amending an existing PUD, we come to you tonight with an anchor tenant. We come to you tonight with a user that is going to be in the ground within the next 30 to 45 days on a 250,000 square foot, 4-story building. The University of Michigan, probably the biggest brand in the state of Michigan, with a medical facility that will extend access and care to the citizens of Oakland County that cannot get the access and care they need in Ann Arbor. And we are going to use that as our launching pad to redevelop this 28 plus 12 or 40 acres that has been sitting largely vacant for 20 years. When we bought this property 17 years ago, this is my first time in front of you. And why is that? There hasn't been a user worthy of coming in front of this council, in front of this community for its citizens, to want to remake the PUD and invest the time, the capital, and the risk capital and the risk equity it takes to do a project like this. This will change the dynamics of the Big Beaver corridor. This will help change and continue the great dynamic that exists in the city of Troy. And we'll use this as a continual launching pad to bring new business and new investment into this community. And you have the best steward you could have in the joint partnership that's been in a part of this community for over 50 years. So don't take downtown Michigan lightly, because we are downtown Michigan as the luxury shopping destination for all of the state to enjoy. Here's the great skyline that exists with that skywalk. When I went in front of Oakland County back in 1993 it was, I don't think I got through the first sentence, and they called for approval on that skywalk. We had all the studies that 60 to 70% of our visitors would use the skywalk and obviously keep all those trips off the roads to allow patrons to seamlessly transition between Somerset South and Somerset North. Kmart obviously occupied 950,000 square feet. They had over 4,600 employees there at the peak of their existence. And all that property to the north was a parking field of cars, but it was more than that. The buildings that fronted on Big Beaver were part of the community. They engaged with the community. There was walkability. You had a little bit of an urban fabric. You had people going for lunch and crossing the street and going over to Somerset in the food court, eating outside in the little park areas that identified the different nodes and the different pods of that Kmart. There was life, there was activity. We want to bring that back to the gateway of the city. And that's what we're intending to do. We started our planning process going back 2 years with this idea of how we're going to have connectivity, especially fronting on Big Beaver. So we came up with the idea of public space, east-west connective tissue that will connect the major points of this development from a mixed-use perspective over time. You see the north-south Central Park. We've dedicated about 1.1 acres that we're going to build out a beautiful park for the city and the community to enjoy. We're going to connect it with hardscape and softscape and fountains on number 2, that east-west node that will connect 2 of the major mixed-use buildings together. We're going to enliven the Big Beaver corridor with major setback and large-scale trees so people can use that connective tissue of the sidewalk along Big Beaver, which is identified under numeral 1 up on the screen. And then number 5, that will also connect the east-west mixed-use buildings with, again, that same kind of node, that public space, hardscape, softscape node that will connect this property together so it has an identity to it from a walkability standpoint, a public standpoint, and a user standpoint. As we begin to look at how we're going to do that, you see the darker colors here. That's a lot of that is that connective east-west tissue. And that is being developed as these uses come forward. But we bring forward an anchor, and you'll see in my timeline a couple slides ahead where U of M is in their process. And that timeline is now. That timeline is this summer, and that timeline is today. So this isn't an if-come to allow flexibility for a PUD that might or might not happen. We will be in the ground, and we'll be bringing jobs, consumer spending, a great brand to this community, and a great partnership for the public and the community and the region to have in Oakland County. This begins to identify the 12 and the 5 acres to the north, the University of Michigan. This went through many layers of planning with the University of Michigan and ourselves and the city, with all of the federal implications of what's going on and all the cuts that have been in funding and IH funding and other research funding. We had to work hard to keep this project together. And it's imperative that we get out of the ground as soon as we can to ensure the success of this project. This began a process by which just north of that purple box that you see on the south side of Cunningham, they had a parking deck that was 4 stories, a concrete parking deck that was 4 stories in nature. As we got through the evolution, and this is what it looked like, and this is what we're in front of you tonight, but as we got through the evolution, and U of M went through their process, and the demand for space in this facility grew and grew and grew, we had the conversation, well, wait, Mr. Forbes, if we put the parking deck just north of our facility, where are we going to be able to expand? And that began a planning process by which we took the parking deck down, we put in surface parking, and then we have a conceptual expansion program to the north that will be connected to the main facility, which would necessitate parking decks on the northeast and northwest side of this facility. Without that, there would be no expansion possibility for the University of Michigan Medical Facility. Again, this is a contemplated piece of this development, but I can tell you from working through it, there's a tremendous amount of demand in this facility for space from all the different disciplines and offices that they want to bring clinical care and strategic care to this greater metropolitan Detroit area, and specifically Oakland County. And this is what it would look like on an ultimate build-out potential. Again, conceptual in nature, with that building expansion to the north, and then parking feeding into that building, the main building and the expanded area on the northeast and northwest pods. You see some of the development on the north on Big Beaver. You see the heavy landscape, rows of trees. You see the east-west connection points. You see the restaurant mixed use along Big Beaver. As we begin to build out this mixed-use program, we'll be back in front of you shortly to talk about these different parcels. Again, we're here to get a conceptual plan approved on the PUD. And this begins to show, this is all the way through, and I'll show you where they are in their design. This is, I believe, all the way through design development. So this is the building you will see from Big Beaver. This is a 4-story building. It drops down to 2.5 stories on the east and the west side. It wedding cakes a little bit. You'll see the main entrance off of our park. Obviously, the park isn't landscaped yet. We haven't put any landscaping on it. This was their drawing. But again, they're picking up on the rich nature of the materials that we use at Somerset and that is indigenous to this area, with the stones and the glass, the transparency, the high elevation, some of the uses of metal and coping around their roof, material that will be in keeping with everything that we've established at Somerset South and Somerset North. A little bit of a closer view of the building. Again, fitting into the landscape, fitting into the scale, into this area just seamlessly. This is on the north side. This would be their drop-off, which would face the parking on the north side of the main facility, and just another vantage point into their lobby area as well. Design vision is to convey a sense of trust, stability, transparency, approachable and welcoming environment. Material palettes that you see on the right side will have a very strong masonry facade with a buff color brick to harmonize with adjacent facilities. Mostly we're speaking about the Somerset collection. Having a stone base that will anchor this project to convey the resilience and stability, expansive glass to convey openness to the community, metal accents that will have a technical expertise integrated into the design so it'll look like a very seamless, highly finished, highly appointed presentation to the community. Symmetrical 4-story building anchored by a large 2-story foundation. Entrances are centered on the north and the south facades. They will be demonstrated through a LEED certification in terms of their environmental stewardship of the University of Michigan. And this will be the Troy Center for Specialty Care. Right now they are 50% complete, greater than 50% completion of construction documents at this point in time. And their plan is to launch construction phase mid-June, that's this month, for hopefully patient care in the spring or summer of 2027. And the whole vision is the priority of this entire destination is to bring world-class care closer to home for residents of Oakland County and beyond. Right now, the University of Michigan sees upward of 150 to 180,000 patients from Oakland County at their other facilities, and this would be their anchor, their one and only Oakland County facility at the present time. And obviously, considering the strategic expansion and opportunities in the future to expand this building into a phase 2. Tremendous benefits for the Troy community, transforming land that has been sitting vacant for over 20 years to a 250,000 square foot destination that will presenting world-class specialty health care to this community, investing funds of $250 million, and improving access closer to home. 32% or 190,000 unique patients seen at U of M in fiscal '24 originated from Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County. Projected annual volume to be greater than 200,000 visits at this facility on an annual basis. Job creation, 375 plus union trade jobs, total wages and salaries as outlined there below. And obviously all this will impact local spending by employees, patients in the region, housing, food, retail, entertainment, amongst other things. You also find with these type of developments that everybody up and down the Big Beaver corridor will also, this will increase the spend and the development to make sure they are best positioned to take advantage of the windfalls and the tailwinds that a development like this brings. Some of the University of Michigan's other academic medical centers in the community, obviously this will be the only one in Oakland County. They have one in Northville that opened up in 2014, 100,000 feet. Obviously their largest presence is in Ann Arbor and the surrounding areas. And then they have the Brighton Center for Specialty Care up in Livingston County that's a ways away. Again, we go back to the use diagram that's allowed under the PUD, and this is the plan, the PUD, planned unit development, that is largely taken from the existing PUD from over 17 years ago, and obviously we'll be in front of you on each one of these parcels as we get further clarity of scale, use, and timing. And this is the contemplated facility that I think we showed at the last meeting, and this would be on the northwest 5 acres, just north of Cunningham Drive, that will be pushed up to Cunningham Drive. And right now, U of M is contemplating on conceptual medical facility of a 2-story building of 30,000 feet. So when you talk about the transition to residential, we are acutely aware and highly aware how that needs to fit. Most of these buildings will be pushed forward with landscape and parking in the back and a great buffer area. Today, it's only 20 feet. That's going to extend to 100 feet at minimum. And this is another view of that conceptual medical facility that will lie north of Cunningham Drive. Again, the same kind of class of materials, and University of Michigan only knows how to do things one way, and we're also proud and lucky to have them as a community partner. This just begins to show you some of the renderings at the ground level as we'll begin to work with our retail uses, mixed uses, and we will enliven this space to really make it a great gathering spot for the community and the end users to enjoy. And that's the presentation of Downtown Michigan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Forbes at this point before I open the public hearing for any comment? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Forbes. I remember the last time we spoke very distinctively because it was the second week of March in 2020. I think you were presenting, not at a council meeting, but to some council members, and it was the week that the country shut down due to COVID. And it shows how ephemeral these projects are, because something like that can happen and close it down, and we've been looking for something like this for 20 years. I know U of M's breaking ground now, and that's probably happening whether we vote yes or no on this at all with the Constitutional Corporation. So how dependent are they on this being approved tonight? I'm also curious, like, have they estimated how many long-term jobs they will create? How much will your piece create long-term for the city? I know you mentioned earlier that Kmart had 4,600 employees, which is a staggering amount for that property. I'm curious if you have any estimates of that or the gain in taxable value to the city that it will bring. I know the Constitutional Corporation piece won't pay taxes to the city, but I'm curious what you estimate ballpark your piece will bring.
So, and it's a great conversation, but I wouldn't stand up here today to promise you an end user for any one of those pieces. We are working on several of them right now, and we are hoping that this phase project comes out of the ground sooner than later. I mean, obviously, as you know, we've been sitting there keeping that building alive for 17 years, and it went on for 5 years before us. David, all I can tell you is we are working diligently on it. It will be something that the community and Troy is proud of. It's something that we'll be proud to present. It will be accretive to the city. The exact number of jobs and the exact taxable value, I would only be guessing, and I would probably be wrong. So we have not done those economics forecasts.
That's okay. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I think I'm okay for now. I may have more later. Thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Forbes, thank you for being here tonight. We're used to seeing architects. We don't often see the actual applicant here, so I really, really appreciate that. And just to start, my questions, they're in a spirit of yes and how to make it work for including the residents. And just to give some context before I ask those questions, I serve every resident in the city of Troy. I do happen to live very much in this corner of Troy. My son goes to school at Schroeder Elementary, which is just off Babcock. Myself and some others on council, we are members of Beechwood, the tennis pool club. So as soon as I leave here, I'm going to be asked by fellow moms and parents, my son's friends who live on Babcock and live on those streets. They're going to ask about our decision. And so some of the questions I want to ask is just to help me to be able to answer them, because I'm going to see them every single day, and I need to know how to communicate and how to understand what was the decision making in some of this. So part of the first question is kind of to understand why the 100 feet for the buffer as opposed to 140 feet that was discussed at some point, just to help me understand how that's.
Yeah, let me be clear. The 140 feet is in the current consent judgment. So for that to be modified to anything less than 140 feet, the consent judgment would have to be modified. There's 5 parties to the consent, and all parties have to agree. City's one of them. So we're 2, Farbman's 3, GM Equities is 4, and the data center owner, which is Ed Lampert, that used to own Sears, is 5. So to change the consent judgment on those 12 acres to anything other than office, it's 140 feet. So to modify the consent to anything less than that, the city would have to sign off on that.
Okay. So with the 100 feet, can we feel confident leaving here that we'll have those 100 feet?
You will have those 100 feet.
Okay, that's important. Second thing was listening to the Planning Commission meeting. There was a lot of conversation around the landscaping, and my understanding was there is not a guarantee around what that landscaping will be. What can I hear from you in terms of the landscaping?
Which parcels specifically are you referring to?
My understanding was around that 100 feet, the buffer, the question around how might that be landscaped with trees, things that are going to help with the noise control or depending on how cars are going to move in that area.
So when we come in on a specific site plan, there will be a conceptual landscape plan that will cover the entire 100-foot buffer. And we've talked about it internally. I actually have some drawings in here that show what we're going to do in the short term to limit the transparency into those houses and neighborhoods, which we're going to take care of in the short term. And we are still in process of developing that 100-foot buffer between the property line and our setback line. So will we have an 8-foot berm, a 10-foot berm, a 12-foot berm? Will we have spruces or evergreens? Will we have boxwoods with evergreens and spruces? I don't have the specifics of it, but I can tell you our entire goal would be to make sure that that landscape buffer is a architecturally pleasing element that feels natural, that it's been there. We won't buy small specimen trees. I think you know us by now. We invest in our assets. We invest in our properties. And that entire landscape buffer in that plan will be paramount to everything we're doing on those 12 acres.
Okay.
I wouldn't come back in front of you without that fully vetted out.
Okay. And I do trust that in that there are 3 particular lots, it's hard to show it on the map, where the berm currently that exists is quite low. And it's very exposed and very open when you go down there. So I just hope there'll be attention paid to those. The last thing was on the parking. I was stuck on all that surface parking, but tonight you may have answered that, and that there are plans to potentially expand. So if I understand, it'll start as surface parking.
Correct.
And then potentially at some point, I don't know if you know when, Michigan Medicine would build 2 parking garages. This is south of Cunningham, but north of their facility. And then one area of that in the middle would be a medical facility. Is that correct?
That'd be an expanded medical facility that would connect to the main facility, and you lose surface parking, then you got to go up.
Okay. Okay.
And those
And
are
how confident are you, Mr. Forbes?
I would
in
just
that
tell you
outfit?
this, that working with them and understanding their program for this facility, there's a tremendous demand for clinical services in this part of the county for University of Michigan. And I think you'll find, whether you're talking about Spectrum or you're talking about Henry Ford or anything else, we are, in this part of the region, medical is almost impossible. You can sit in an emergency room for 2 days. And Michigan, although this isn't a full hospital, they'll have tremendous clinical care and clinical operations. And the demand they're getting from their clinical operations in Ann Arbor to open in Oakland County every day grows and grows and grows. Well, soon enough, they'll be busting at the seams, and they have to provide for that expansion as the demand warrants it, so they don't lose ground and market share in this part of the region.
Okay. Last question. The two parcels to the right, north of Cunningham, to the right of what Michigan Medicine will build a facility there, do we know what exactly is going to go in those right two parcels, one of which is on Big Beaver?
Yeah, so you're referring to the middle parcel here up at the top, this one here and this one.
Yes.
We're currently working on this one right now. Not in a position to come back to you with anything on that, but we are working on something like that right now. And I would say that the building location that we show here is pretty close to what we're working on. And the centerpiece, we have not identified a user for at this time. But again, remember, this is all bound by the consent judgment. So today, without modifying the consent, it's bound for office/medical office.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council for Mr. Forbes? Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes, for being here, and thanks for your pride in the Somerset collection. It's definitely, at least the shopping capital of Michigan. My wife will agree, for sure. So I have a quick question. The Central Park, that is a walkable downtown that we kind of miss in Troy. And it's not much, but it's something that I think will be a wonderful addition to this. Who is actually going to maintain that?
We
Is
are.
that you are not University of Michigan?
Correct. We will have an HOA on this total property that we, Forbes Company Somerset, will manage and operate. So it is our responsibility to build, maintain, and replace and repair all the common areas, the roads, curbs, the sidewalks, and the park and public space.
Okay. And then I think following up on Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig's question, the one that on the north side of Cunningham, I think that building you mentioned is up to 2-story tall, right?
This one here right
Yeah,
now
the one
is contemplated 2-story building.
2-story, okay. So 40 feet is
Yeah.
the maximum height. Okay, so that's sort of same as a little bit taller than a regular building, so that I think, or regular residential house, so. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not much. It's,
Yeah.
in the 20, 25-foot range, 30-foot range.
Okay, thank you, I think.
Thank you. Additional questions? Before I go back to you, David,
Sure.
see if there's any new ones. I have a question for you, Mr. Forbes, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Hamilton. If the consent, it's similar to what I asked the city attorney earlier. If the consent judgment says 140 feet, and you're saying it needs to be, you need approval from all those members of the consent judgment to you change that, why are we not doing a CDP for 140 feet now? What's the missing piece there? What's the 40 feet difference?
The only
from the development
rationale
plan?
was that the 100 feet is what existed in
On
the old
the
PUD.
previous PUD.
Previous PUD.
Without putting you too much on the spot, I mean, these drawings that you have here, that's not the best angle, but how many feet on your scale is there? Do you know?
Rob, what would you guess on it?
I mean, I guess my question is it,
Is the setback that we are showing on this contemplated facility,
that one's bigger. What about the other two, the non-Michigan ones?
what about this one, Rob? Based on the plan that we've cited today, what is that? Setback from the property line? So from the church? Yeah, so you're saying right now, the way we have it cited, it's set back about 120 feet from the church. Okay, and the center building, Mayor, I'd be lying to you, we have nothing planned today for that center parcel. The two that are working are the ones that are flanking to the west and to the east, and those are both north of 100 right now today as they sit.
Okay. think about that. Any other questions? Councilmember Hamilton, yeah, thank you.
I was just curious, when do you anticipate coming back with the next step of the next phase or whatnot?
Again, I would be guessing as soon as we can. I mean, listen, we are, as soon as hopefully we get approved, U of M closes, they get in the ground, we have to award our site work contract for this whole site. So we, again, Frankel's and ourselves are going to be investing, in addition to all the money we've invested to date on demolition, abatement, remediation, soils remediation, digging out basements that existed, contaminated soils. We went into it thinking that was going to cost us X, and it ended up costing us X times 2. So as soon as we can get through this phase, we have to pull our permit with the city, and we will start our underground work. We will extend all of our utilities to each parcel. We will begin to grade the site into a final elevation. We will put in all the roads and the curbs, and we'll begin to set this site up to be development ready. So we are starting that right when we close U of M. We'll probably get, Rob, what's our contemplated schedule on site work?
Starting July 7th, and doing base course of asphalt for the roads in October.
So we're trying to get the site work done over the summer and do the base course of asphalt before the plant shut down. So this site, we want it to be development ready by the fall. And at that point in time, U of M should be, hopefully, they'll have a lot of their foundations in and going vertical coming out of the ground. And concurrent with that, every day, we are working on these individual parcels.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Forbes, for being here tonight. So I'm not an attorney, so I'm just trying to fully understand the 100 feet versus 140 feet setback, okay? So if we approve the 100-foot right now, you would have to honor the 140-foot unless everyone else signs off on it.
Let me verify that. Is that correct? That's correct.
Okay.
We would have to live by the 140-foot setback unless the consent judgment was modified. And there's 5 parties to the consent. The city is one of those parties.
So when you start construction,
we'll have to be at 140 feet.
okay, unless you get everyone to sign off on it pretty quickly. I don't know how easy that would be or not, but
it's not.
It's not easy. Okay. Okay.
It's been 2 years.
Okay.
We're still in the batter's box.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
I just want to be clear that, is that, Lori, is that you, do you agree with David?
Yes, that is correct. I mean, just to add to that though as well, the city would actually be approving 100 feet. So the city would not be opposing that with the consent judgment amendment. So yes, it is true that other parties would have to agree to it, but the city won't have the ability to object to reducing that.
If we got the consent agreement modified.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So you would start at basically 140 right, as of right now. Okay.
You want to follow up with that, Councilmember Hodrick?
And I'm so sorry to do this to you when you're standing here. Our role is to represent our residents, so I want to be clear that I thank you for this project. We've seen projects come forward, and there will be residents that I know are coming in with pitchforks and torches. When people are excited, they don't show up, but I think if everyone I've interacted with and spoke so positively about this did show up, it wouldn't be pitchforks and torches, it would be like party hats and balloons and champagne. I mean, people are very excited, especially those who've lived here for a long time. I know you've made a major investment there with just the demolition of the Kmart property. That was going to be my question before I also clarify with our attorney. Am I correct in remembering at the Planning Commission, it was like $6.5 million just to do the demolition?
The contract started at $6.8 million.
Okay.
It ended at something a lot higher.
So I want you to know, Mr. Frankel to know, I fully appreciate everything you're doing and suffer from huge imposter syndrome to be completely vulnerable with you. Like, who am I to ask any questions about this at this point? But I'm remembering who I am and what I'm elected to do, to ask questions, and I know my colleagues feel the same way, because we are, of course, impressed with this project and excited. But there is confusion about this 100-foot versus 140-foot. And I thought I just heard our city attorney say, if we approve this with the 100 feet, and somebody came back and wanted to do less than 140 feet, because we approved this tonight, we wouldn't be in the position to be one of the 5 to say no.
Correct.
I'm getting better at this. So let that swirl through my brain for the moment. We're asking these questions, and again, in the good faith.
Yep.
We have developed a reputation of making sure we do represent our residents, even as we want to make sure developers can do good business here in Troy. So that's what you're experiencing here with us tonight.
Nothing? Oh, we were waiting. Wow, I don't know.
That whole thing for nothing.
It just changed the whole trajectory of everything.
Trajectory of everything.
Is that,
By the way, get an idea of a scale of what 100 feet is. I mean, it's 100 feet is a deep, deep setback. When you go along Big Beaver, your setback limits are 40 feet. This is 100. This is 2.5 times. And in all likelihood, we're going to be north of that number. The current consent provides for 140. This approval under the city's jurisdiction would drop that to 100 if, in fact, we did reduce it anywhere below 140. But I can tell you that modifying the consent judgment today, because every other party to the consent judgment wants something. They want the ability to do certain things with their development that wouldn't necessarily, I think, be beneficial for the Big Beaver corridor. So there's been a lot of conversation with people that are party to the consent, and I'm not sure we have everybody rowing in the direction. But from a legal standpoint, you need to understand what the city is giving up by that. Yeah, I understand that.
Right. And I fully took this weekend to understand 100 feet versus 140 feet.
It's a good sized field goal, by the way.
I think sometimes when we're looking at diagrams, I want to assure you that I have spent an inordinate amount of time, you and our residents, thinking about this, understanding it, and we're going to be opening for resident comment, but you can appreciate how we want to make sure I'm done in November. I'm not politicking. I'm not going on for another position. I want to make sure what I leave when I'm done, and I'm excited about this, that this will happen while I'm still here. But I don't want to later think, as residents that I know that live in that area, gee, we messed up when we gave up 40 feet, which may not sound like a lot in the scheme of the project, but as you sit back down and we hear our residents, we'll let this swirl, but it's a good faith discussion I'm having as a fiduciary for the city. And I think if you were sitting here, you'd do the same, so that future councils, administration, city attorneys, planning departments don't say, wow, why did they do that night? That's what is swirling through my head, so.
And understand also the existing PUD does have 100 foot in it, and that's where that's where a generator.
Yeah.
Another
follow-up from Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Forbes, you had mentioned earlier a 20-foot and somewhere along the way. When you say 20 feet, were you talking about the edge of the parking lot?
I think the question was what existed. If you walked out there today, what are we looking at? Mm-hmm. So if you went to that back lot.
Yes.
And you look to the north to the residential, the property line sits right about at the top of that berm. So what exists today from the property line to the end of the green space is only 20 feet.
Okay.
So we would be extending that 80 feet in width.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Councilmember Hoderick.
With a landscaped berm, better than what's there now.
Oh yeah, it'll be a whole design berm. It could be 8 feet, it could be 10 feet, it could be 7 feet, it could be anything we I mean, here, let me just give you a little idea of what. So we've already started looking at it up here on these pictures, and we took views from different vantage points on that north 12 acres. And as we begin to think about in the short term, before we come in with a full plan, what we're going to do to underpin and underplant some of these areas today. So we're already working on creating and solving for the issues that have been brought up in the 2 planning commission meetings to satisfy the residents, do our part as community citizens, knowing this isn't the long-term solution. But this will go a long way. This has existed for a long time in this condition. And so this will enhance that 20-foot berm that exists before we extend it to a 100-foot berm. And we've looked at it and we continue it. And we've even, in this lowest area here, there's in the middle, where we've even talked about adding in a fence that you see in the background here, because that is the lowest part of the berm. Until we get a unified design that will cover that entire length, we are going to have a short-term solution to solve for that. So we have not, it has not fallen on deaf ears. I hope that gives you some comfort, at least, into what we're thinking about and trying to address.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all these details. That was exactly what I was trying to understand, is what the vision is, especially those areas, the 3 lots that are very open. Just wondering, with your team, is there any plan to do any engagement meeting with the residents who are impacted along Babcock in this way? I know we often see applicants who do that. I know this is a large project.
We did. Okay. We had a meeting at Troy at Somerset at our community room. I think we invited, I don't remember how many, anyone remember? 60, 70?
We invited all the neighbors at that.
I think we invited 60 or 70 residents from the northern suburb area there. And I don't remember how many we had show up, maybe 15 different residents. And we went through the entire presentation with them in our community room, in our style suite at Somerset. We did that before the Planning Commission public hearing.
I have one other question.
That's fine. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have another question about some of the parking lots. So in one of the schematics, like I think kind of the earlier rendition or something, there was a lot of the parking in the front, like right off of Coolidge, and the stores were in back of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought our ordinances were that we wanted the storefronts to be more closer to the streets and the parking to be behind that.
And that's what we have here. So these front lots will have uses along Big Beaver with 2 smaller parking lots divided by a 1.15 acre.
So that's the built out.
Park.
So I thought that there was a schematic, another one that you had showed that showed maybe a different thing, but this is basically what we're looking at. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Chanda, did you have something?
Yeah, so follow up on that. So all the entrances almost all of them are from Cunningham's site, correct? Like all the parking lot. I mean, you're getting into Cunningham from Big Beaver and Coolidge.
Correct.
But to the property, you are getting in from Cunningham for most part.
We will have 2 entrances off of Big Beaver that will take you back.
Those are car or those are pedals? It doesn't look like a car entrance, but maybe.
Yeah, this is an entrance. This is all been worked out with Oakland County Road Commission along Big Beaver. And we have some off-site improvements along Big Beaver and Coolidge that we are decel lanes, turn lanes that we are going to be improving as part of the development plan.
Okay. You got one more? Go ahead, Councilmember Chamberlain.
Thank you. Councilmember Brooks reminded me of a question on the parking. So the 3 lots north of Cunningham, I think the first one that abuts Coolidge, wherever the parking is, if it's behind the building, a little bit of it is on Coolidge, it's not as important. You have a church north of there. They're not always there. I think I'm more concerned about the other two lots, including the first one, which is Michigan Medicine. It's showing the parking on the side, but also behind the facility close to the R1B. And that's, I know there's a plan to buffer and to put trees, but I still get concerned about, and I know this would be during the day, so it's maybe not at night, but during November, December, it gets dark really early.
Yep.
Just concerned about those lights, headlights from cars and going into people's homes.
So I will tell you, about a year ago, we finished a study. It was a light pollution study in all of our shopping centers. And I think we've completed them on 1 or 2 of our malls completely. We're changing all the heads in all of our malls to these new low light pollution LED lights that focus light. I mean, the diffusion of light is like down to next to nothing. And these are not high-story buildings, especially the one you're concerned about. So the need to have a lot of high-level lighting, and they're operating during the day. Most of these facilities will be closed at 5:30 in the evening, 5 o'clock, 5:30. So, you have to provide a certain level of parking that satisfies the size of, 5 per 1,000 or whatever it is. But the last place you're going to park is on the north side of that building that goes up against the landscape buffer. And that's part of our job in the site planning with the University of Michigan or whoever builds on these parcels, is to make sure we're consistent with what we've told the city in terms of how we're going to ultimately build this out. And we will push and work to make sure that the parking is orientated in a way that limits any kind of noise disruption, aesthetically pleasing finishes, light pollution. I mean, it's just part of what we do as a developer.
Okay, thank you.
And you get that for free.
All right. I think we're going to open the public hearing, which means I'm going to bang the gavel. And we do have one person signed up to speak. Doesn't prohibit anyone else from speaking. Mary Ellen Barden signed up first, and I know she knows the rules. We have 3 minutes. The timer will go here. You can do it.
I just said you guys said a lot of things that I wanted to say, so I'm trying to cut back and not repeat.
All right, that's fine. Appreciate that. You have your 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself, and we're ready for you.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Barden. Most of you probably know me from the hundreds of emails I've sent in the past couple of weeks. I'm here today to really ask you, I guess ultimately, is to not amend the consent judgment and to uphold the 140 feet. It looks like he's added fencing, but without it being in writing, I don't believe my fencing is coming. And again, I am the lowest part of the berm. And I know that you told me that you don't think people go from the buildings to property, but I say that human nature is to take the shortest possible route, which is a straight line, and that means they cut through my yard, and it's been demonstrated to me on multiple occasions. What saddens me most about this whole process is that my neighbors have become so disenfranchised with the city that they don't believe in you anymore. But here I am. I'm asking you not to just listen, but to act today and uphold the consent judgment and hold them to the 140 feet barrier, because you've addressed everything else. I also want to say thank you very, very much. For reading my emails, I can tell that they've been read, and I do appreciate you. And I do appreciate Mr. Forbes, believe it or not. As you know, most of my comments have been about protecting our quiet, peaceful neighborhood. And that's all I really want. I'm actually excited for it's time for that. As I told you, Mayor Baker, it's time. And I'm excited about it, and I believe he will do it in good form. But I hope he gives us the 40 feet and you uphold the 40 feet, since it requires the city's signature for it to happen. So as you propose, why not just give us the 140 feet now in the PUD? I know the other one gave 100. At the time, I was sleeping 2-3 hours a night, being a single mom, working 2 jobs, trying to maintain my house. And as I told you, I was not going to be the resident who brought down the neighborhood. I'm sorry I didn't attend more of those meetings. I told you I don't even forgive myself for not becoming more involved at then. Unfortunately, my kids have now received very much lectures about community activism. And I just couldn't at the time physically able to stand here at the meeting and oppose that 100 feet as vehemently as I have for this process. So I very much appreciate if you guys would not change the consent judgment and take away any of our buffer. Thank you so very much. Your conversation today almost makes me want to cry because I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, and thanks for taking the time with me that you have in our previous meeting, of course. As I stated, just because you didn't sign up in a public hearing doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to speak. I see a hand come up. Please come up and introduce yourself. Same rule for 3 minutes.
Before I start, is it okay if I start on the library? Because I was signed up for the library. Is that okay to talk about it?
Technically, I can't stop you because a public hearing, you're free to say what's right.
Good evening. My name is Joey Colby Bernard. I live at 5125 Shady Creek. I'm a clinical social worker with a practice here in Troy and a graduate student at Michigan State University of College of Human Medicine. I also really hope that you guys uphold the consent agenda. Thank you for speaking. You're courageous and brave. Now, at the April 28th joint meeting between the City Council and Planning Commission, I was seated next to members of the 11th District Republican delegation. I paid close attention to the reactions. What I saw wasn't thoughtful skepticism or civic concern. It was open derision. They mocked the idea of investing in a new library. That reaction fits into a larger pattern. The MAGA wing of the 11th District supports efforts to gut the Melcat system and dismantle the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And there's a quiet irony in watching the same Republican precinct delegates who fought to restore middle school honors classes now organizing against one of the few institutions that supports students learning outside the classroom. So let's be perfectly clear here. Their actions are not about transparency or fiscal restraint. It's not about a law. It's a long-running effort to divest from public goods and shrink civic infrastructure. In 2011, the city faced an orchestrated anti-tax campaign that nearly succeeded in shutting down the Troy Library. The opposition to this was so cynical and performative that local residents staged the fake book burning party to expose it. That stunt made national news, and it worked. The public showed up, the library was saved because the community fought back. We're here. We're going to fight for our library. We need a new one. It's not working. It's old. Emily Dumas and Philip Quick have laid out the case with clarity and integrity. Both of them are two of the finest library administrators in the state. Emily even stated at that meeting that she knows that she can manage the staff in a new library without worrying too much about additional expenses. The case has been made. I know that the resolution is not till June 30th, but I am here to come here and say that I support it and that it should be put on the ballot and that you should let our citizens vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Anyone else like to speak on E1, the public hearing for the Somerset West project? All right, that's that. I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the table for council discussion if there's something on the table to discuss.
Can I call for a break?
Sure.
Break.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back 5 minutes. All right, we'll go back on the record here. We close the public hearing. It's time to have a resolution moved so we can bring it to the table for discussion. Anyone like to move a resolution? Councilmember Hoderick.
Mayor, I'll move E1 as printed in the agenda packet. Should I read out the?
I'll do it if you want.
I'll move E1 as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve E1, Planned Unit Development, PUD 021 JPLN 2024-0012, Proposed Somerset West Concept Development Plan and Preliminary Development Plan for Phase 1A, north side of Big Beaver, west side of Coolidge, 3100 West Big Beaver, PIN 88-20-19-476-002, 88-20-19-476-003, and 88-20-19-430-004, Section 19, presently zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development Zoning District, as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Councilmember Hoderick.
We had discussion about 100 feet, 140 feet. Thinking about the PUDs and the Big Beaver corridor and the setbacks, I'm fully aware of what they are consistently. I guess I would like to have a little bit of discussion about that. If we approve this, my understanding is we will be then at 100 feet. Versus the consent judgment, which is 140. I had a sense, I'll just be candid, that maybe you were going to offer. This is a negotiation between the city. I am not nitpicking this plan, but I would like to entertain the idea of an amendment that would maybe be the compromise. And like the Mondrian proposal at that time of 120 feet, which was a far taller building, as I recall, that maybe the applicant could meet us halfway. We would feel that we've represented the residents going forward, and have done our job. That is our number one job, is to represent our residents. So I throw that thought on the table. I am so excited about this plan. I want to be clear, to focus on 40 feet of a buffer is just the right thing for us. That's our job to do tonight. That's the piece of it that I feel like we should entertain finessing. And I'd appreciate hearing from my colleagues on where they are.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll jump in because it's exactly where I am. Councilmember Hoderick, my understanding, differently than some of what I just heard tonight, was that it would be 100 feet if we approve this, not 140. As much as I would like 140, I feel like that respects the residents and the way that I feel is deserved. When I asked the question of why 100 versus 140, I think what I was looking for from the applicant was help us understand, is there some detrimental impact to the project? What does that mean? And instead I got the long answer about, well, I need all these parties to agree. That's not an answer I'm going to give to the moms that I pick up my son with. That's not the answer I'm going to give to my friends when I see them at the pool tomorrow night. I need an answer. And what people are going to say, and literally when I'm saying I drive Babcock Street almost every day to Beechwood, to take my son to school. That is a road. I go up Babcock. So I know that street inside out. And these are the people who I spend my time with. And so I would love to do everything we can to try to add an extra 40 feet, to have 140 feet. I don't know what that all means. I'm not a lawyer, but I would love to hear what others have to say about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we still ask a question? to Attorney Bloom? Of course. Okay, Attorney Bloom, I just have a quick question, just for clarification again. U of M, University of Michigan, their portion of the property would still be bound by these setbacks, correct? Or?
The property north of Cunningham, so the northwest.
Yes.
Yes. That would be bound by the consent judgment.
Okay.
Only the consent judgment.
So they are bound to the 140 feet?
As of right now. But the agreement that is proposed and in the packet for you requires the city to consent to an amendment to the consent judgment that could reduce it to 100 feet.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just making sure, because I know that University of Michigan was exempt from certain things, so I just wanted to make sure that they are in line with whatever we decide.
They would need to comply with the consent judgment, not the CDP.
Okay. But it still requires our portion to approve that, our portion in the consent judgment, though, correct? Like, we're still contributing to that.
You would, yes, they need to get your consent, but you would actually be giving your consent.
Yes, that's what I wanted to confirm.
Right.
Okay, yes. So with that being said, obviously, I'm a health professional, so the prospect of University of Michigan coming here is extremely exciting. I go to University of Michigan myself for my health care, so it's nice to be able to go down the street versus go out to Livonia or somewhere else. So with that being said, I'm really excited. Obviously, this is a million times better than what has been there for the last 2 decades. So all of that, is, jumping up in joy, jumping up and down for joy for that. But my biggest concern is with that setback as well. If it already is 140 feet at this point in time, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why we would necessarily make it less than that. And I'm also not hearing any strong reasons why. It doesn't seem like it will have a huge negative impact on the, on the development. And it would be very beneficial potentially for the residents that have to live there. And, this does directly affect them. It affects their property values potentially. It affects, their peace in their own home. And that is important for us, obviously, as representing our residents, as well as respecting the rights of our developers. So for me, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm okay with the 120, I'm okay with the 140. I'm not sure that I necessarily would want to approve the 100 feet, though. So, I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
So yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm excited about the project, obviously, would like to see University of Michigan and everything else you proposed. I guess my simple question is, why not 120 or 140, right? It's Mayor asked, is that, I understand that, more gap you have, the smaller the building would be. I guess that's probably the simple answer, but is it possible that we can come to some kind of an agreement, either 100 feet from the edge of that barn, which will be 120 feet from, I think, the property line, or better yet, 120 feet from the edge of the barn? That's something in good faith. Can we ask you to consider so that we don't stop the project? I understand the timeline is very critical, and believe me, I've been seeing that building there for last 20 years, and every time I drove by there, I wanted something there, and this is a wonderful proposal. I'm a University of Michigan alumni myself. My family used their facility. Would love to see them here as soon as possible, but I'd like to see, do you consider, moving with the amendment, and we approve with that amendment? So that's kind of where I am also.
Councilmember Hamilton?
So I just want to discuss with council, what are our options then? Are we going to amend this tonight? Can we do that? Or would we have to delay it again?
No.
Which I don't want to do that.
I have no appetite to delay anything
good.
tonight.
If that's the case. then I'm open to it.
Okay, maybe it's,
City Attorney Bloom?
Mayor, just one suggestion. Again, I don't want this to be delayed either, and I appreciate that you want to move forward with it. One suggestion that could happen is that there could be an amendment to the resolution, and the amendment to the resolution would be to require that there be a change to the CDP that reflects a buffer of whatever amount to the north, from the residential properties north of Cunningham, on the north of Cunningham.
We have the discretion to do that with PUD.
You have the ability to put that in your resolution, so the agreement would remain as is. It keeps it moving forward. I can't guarantee that that's acceptable to the property owner, however.
Yeah, procedurally, can the applicant speak again? City Clerk Dixon?
It's up to council if you.
Mr. Forbes?
So, a couple things. Just as a point of clarification, just so we're level set here, this is not my answer, but I just want everyone to be aware that if we were not going through the PUD process and the PUD did not exist or the consent judgment did not exist, the underlying zoning, you would have an applicant up here that would have a 40-foot setback, and you'd have to live with that if you approved what they were in here for. So let's just level set that as a baseline, okay? And I'm not here to get in any kind of conflict with anybody. The other thing I want you to understand is the relative scale of 120 to 150 feet of width. This room is 50 feet wide. So this is 50 feet from brick wall to brick wall. Double this width, and you have a 100-foot berm. Triple this width, and you have a 150-foot berm. So a 140-foot setback is a huge, huge, huge amount of space. This is a 50-foot width, this room. So what I would say to you, if it's all important to everybody, and I can't tell you that we'll ever encroach upon 140, I just don't have the answer to that, which I'm sorry to say. If we want to pass a resolution that amends it to 120 feet, I would be willing to do that, knowing that it is 2.5 times the size of this room. And without a PUD, your underlying zoning, the applicant would be up here, you'd only have 40 feet to live within for these residences. So we will triple that 40 that the underlying zoning has, and we'd be amenable to a 120-foot setback. So I hope that helps.
I'm sorry, it's, Marilyn, you're out of order. You can't speak. You can't speak. You can't. Ma'am, you know you can't. You know you can't. I'm sorry, but it's just the way the rules work. It's the way the rules work.
So I hope that helps, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. It helps me because there's an agreement to compromise at 120 feet, and I know that's not going to make you as happy as you'd like to be, but it's more than the 100 feet. And I'm going to make a motion to amend the resolution as printed to, I was writing as fast as Lori was talking, to amend the resolution requiring a change to the CDP, requiring a buffer of 120 feet on the northern section of the property on that north of Cunningham property.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga, that we move to amend E1 to increase the CDP required buffer to 120 feet. Any discussion on that amendment? I'll start. To me, I appreciate compromise. I appreciate that certainly I've learned as a lawyer, compromise doesn't usually make both people happy. Both have to give a little, and often both are upset in some respect. But I do think from a comfort level for this council, based on what I was hearing during discussion, that it was a difficult pill to swallow to adjust it automatically down to 100 feet, recognizing you still need the data center and the other owners surrounding to amend the consent judgment. But if the city's already given an approval, it made it a little bit easier, I guess, for example. And I do recognize the scale of 100 feet or 50 feet, 140 feet, 120 feet. And I appreciate the offer from the applicant to make a movement here publicly on the spot. I recognize that's not always the way it's done. I've met with you, Ms. Barton, in your kitchen, in your backyard, in the parking lot. We were trespassing on your property back there, and we were trying not to, yeah, anyway. But I live it. I understand where Councilmember Chamberlain-Crangus coming from, with the residents that she comes in contact with who are more than just residents, they're friends and they're schoolmates and moms and club mates and all of those things. I do think it will, I think the extra 20 feet does help. I'll say into the microphone. She was out of order, but she's happy with the extra 20 feet. So I'm going to take that as that. But honestly, and I'll talk about the rest of the projects here in a minute, but I appreciate Mr. Forbes and your team for coming to the table with that offer, and I appreciate my colleagues for entertaining the discussion, and for the residents watching and those in the audience. This is a clunky conversation about a landscape buffer that's conceptual right now when we're ignoring hundreds of millions of dollars of development along our Big Beaver corridor in the process. It's a really interesting discussion. But that said, any other discussion on the motion to amend? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So now E1 has been amended to have the CDP changed to include the 120-foot buffer. So we have that resolution on the table for E1. Further discussion about the project itself. Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to talk about how impressive this project is, how amazing this will be for the city of Troy, the jobs that it will create, bringing U of M Hospital, which I know personally, with a special needs daughter who got amazing care from U of M Hospital, and we would have to go all the way to Ann Arbor to do that, and now we can do that here, and kids throughout Oakland County and residents throughout Oakland County will be able to do that here in the city of Troy is remarkable. The amount of jobs it will create, the tax revenue it will bring to the city and the non-U of M portions, instead of a property that was vacant for 20 years. Knocking on doors in the 8 years I've been on council, that property is probably the property I've heard about most. And that, why don't you do something there? When 8 years ago, when they were planning something with the city center area, everyone was like, why don't we just build all that there? It is the #1 vacant property in the city of Troy that I've heard about. And to have this high quality of development is amazing for our community. I thank you for bringing it, and I will proudly support this. And I'm also a U of M graduate, so that's good.
Go blue. Yeah.
Yes, go blue.
Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. And I join voice with that. I mean, I am incredibly excited about the project, and I think that buffer zone of 120 feet is a good compromise. Thanks for agreeing to that, and thanks, Ms. Borden, for representing your neighbors. I know I'm one of those, and I understand how people feel about the privacy of their home and trespassing. So it is a good compromise. I'm glad that we are going home with both parties are happy. I'm a U of M graduate, as I mentioned earlier, so I'm incredibly happy to see this happening. But more importantly, I think that whole space was sitting there idle for last 20 years, and nothing was happening. It was an eyesore in one of the best cities in Oakland County. So I'm so excited to see that happening. As I mentioned earlier, one of the complaints we get about Troy is that we have everything but not a walkable downtown. So this will add a little bit of that. I wish it was a little bit more. We can find a way to connect those to other parts of Troy. But the shopping complex, all the housing, all the things you have in the planning, I would like to see the details of that in the future. But for now, I'm very happy to support this. I'm look forward to groundbreaking soon for your fam. So,
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. This week is an important week for Troy. As many of you know, we are celebrating 70 years. You've seen the banners around. We have pins, and we have a celebration on Saturday. I've been telling people it's amazing that in just 70 years, Troy has become an economic powerhouse. And if anything, it is the work of you, Mr. Forbes, bringing the whole vision of Somerset Mall. That has been a part of the vision. That has been a part of Troy becoming such an economic hub that it is. Not just shopping, but it's part of the economic hub. And that's why I am excited about this project. It's the project itself, but it's the ripple effects. I know that is going to fill up empty office space. That is going to reinvigorate opportunity for office to residential conversions. People are going to want to be out on the streets. That is my vision. Someday I want Troy, I want people to be walking, and I want to see artwork and sculptures around. And I believe that this is a step in that positive direction. I worked for over 9 years just across the street from the old Kmart. So I looked at it from my office every single day for over 9 years. And it's true, when we knock doors, the number one thing I would be asked, especially in my neighborhood, because I live just south of there, is what's happening with Kmart. And even now, everyone's asking. And so it's been great to be able to say something is moving forward, and it's something that is good for the city. So I am so proud to support this, and the things I just want to leave you with, maybe Mr. Forbes, because this is for the next phase, is that vision for placemaking and that vision for it being, as you shared, a place for Troy to be like a downtown, and to have programming, to have farmers markets, and to have a way for people to walk their dogs and grab a coffee, pick up fresh fruit. All of that is what Troy's needed more of. And you have the chance to bring what Troy, that last little missing piece. We are one of the best cities in America, ranked number 10, but you add it all the more. Maybe next time we will be in the top 5 or number 1. This can add to it. The other just thing to leave us with too is when I talk with residents, especially in my neighborhood, because many people lived there when Kmart was in operation, and people do bring up traffic. And they have already warned me that as this develops, we will have more traffic. We will have more traffic, especially people cut through in my neighborhood. So it is something, as I've been asking with our budgets, I think we have to continue to think about what does this mean for, we have the police staffing for traffic control and all those sorts of things, but it's all worth it, and I'm proud of it. And again, this could make Troy number 1 in the US, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango. Any more? Councilmember Hoderick?
This is a good night in Troy. I want to be clear. Thank you to everyone involved, our planning department, our planning commission, city administration, city attorney, colleagues and residents. We have one that's here tonight talking, but we do, as you can tell, talk to residents all around town. We hear from people continuously. The Forbes Frankel investment here, to have this here in Troy is amazing. I know it in the region. So much of what we enjoy in this region is through the thoughtful involvement and the social responsibility I've also seen. Clearly, you're a great businessman, but also that social responsibility. And I am trusting that will be brought to this project. I'm a Spartan, married to a Wolverine. To have that medical type facility, it is so exciting. And I hope the conversation here where we're representing our residents does not at all throw a wet blanket on what you perceive our perception of this project to be. This is so important. It is so exciting. I remember that paper coming out with downtown Michigan. We do have a downtown, and at its core is Somerset Collection and everything that grows out from there down Big Beaver. This is a golden corridor in Michigan and in our nation. I just want to take a moment to say I couldn't feel more blessed and more honored to be working with people looking to do this kind of a project here. We are blessed tonight, and I'm really happy to support this.
I guess I'll say something really quickly. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank you, Mr. Forbes, and your whole team. I want to thank you, Ms. Barden, for speaking up for yourself and other residents that live in the area. And it warms my heart that we were able to kind of come to a good compromise. Obviously, I said my piece. I'm really excited about this project. I think it is going to I agree, just help revitalize the Big Beaver corridor and just add to what we already have, just the excellence that we already have. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited to, see all the changes and the positive development, and I'm excited to approve it tonight.
Thank you. All right, I'll try to be brief, and I will be brief on this one, because I don't want to be too repetitive, but I'm obviously very excited to support this. Nate, Mr. Forbes, first of all, Mr. Frankel went to bed probably. He's left already because he does that. I'd love him. This is way past his bedtime, but you'll have to let him know tomorrow morning what happened, I hope. But, the Forbes family and the Frankel family have been a huge part of our city's growth and our city's shine, really. And, I'm always pleased. When I first learned about Michigan coming in, I think I asked you, are you in this for the long haul, Nate? Are you sticking around the project? Because early concerns were, are you going to sell off everything? And I didn't think so, knowing what I know about how you feel about the surrounding properties and Somerset and everything. But you've got your son involved. He's been there at all these meetings as well. It's a family business that is spreading generations at this point, which I think is really important to show your family's commitment to our community. And it gives me some peace to know that you'll continue for as long as you want to, but there's future Forbes that are going to continue as well and want to make sure you have the same level of excellence that you do now in the future. And so there's a lot of, I agree, put everything in writing. The lawyer and me are saying as much in writing as possible, but if there is a family or two that I'm willing to give a little bit of flexibility to that I trust will do the right thing for our community, it is the Forbes and Frankel families. And that could come back to bite us all, so please don't let that happen. But that's truly how I feel. And I'm going to come back to the project in a second, but Mary Ellen, I appreciate you. I know you get up at 4:30 in the morning every day because that's 3:30, sorry, your husband's out by 4:30, and you've been staying late nights at planning commission meetings. I met with you, I've been telling people, I came into your home and you welcomed me in, and your dining room table had, Nate, I promise she's working harder on this than you are. There was multiple computers and documents everywhere, legal agreements dating back for longer than I've been alive. But she really has poured her heart and soul into this because she cares. Because it's, as she told me, and she mentioned a little tonight, it's, her home for most people, as you know, but that's her biggest investment. That's her biggest comfort. She's worked really hard over the years to make sure that she's been able to keep it in times when it was likely that she could have lost it. She wants to have quiet enjoyment of her home, and she has fought very hard to have some movement on some of these issues. And I want you to know, Mary Ellen, I think this is a victory for you because you didn't give up and you're here, and it is a compromise of sorts, and I hope that you can take some peace in that and know that you have made your voice heard, you've represented your neighbors well, you've represented yourself well, and your husband can stop telling you to stop going to these meetings and you can get some extra sleep because I know it's been hard. But it's a victory for you, and I hope you can feel that and take some solace tonight. And I also know, and Mr. Forbes, you should know that the minute there's not enough trees out there and the berm's not getting addressed or there's trash in that back corner, I'm going to hear about it, which means you're going to hear about it. So I hope that we can work hard to make sure that during this construction process, you can multi-phase some of the things what you're going to do. And you talked about that tonight, and I appreciate that. It is I'm in my 11th or 10th year, you're in your 12th year, David's got 8. All of us have spent a number of years answering the damn question, what's going on with Kmart? And none of us have ever been able to say anything. I mean, up until fairly recently. And it's really exciting for all of us and for the city of Troy to have some forward movement. I see Robin Beltramini out in the audience who served on council, served on planning. She served our city a lot, and she's been dealing with these things or answering those same questions too. I'm sure even today she gets asked as a private citizen, what's happening with Kmart? But now we finally have an answer to that. And yes, it's a concept plan other than the Michigan piece, and there's a lot of moving parts. But I have no doubt that with Michigan breaking ground in about 15 minutes, that we're ready to go with the next phases. I mean, I know that you're going to, market considerations aside, and of course, but you don't want to stop at Michigan developing their piece. I know that. That's not going to work. So I'm so excited and so thankful for everyone working so hard from the city side, of course, from the applicant side. And I hope also that our residents will learn to appreciate this process for what it is and how it works and how it doesn't always work. And the give and the take that happens, and the ability of the representative body and residents and the applicants to kind of come together and get a good product, because I believe this is an excellent product at the end of the day. And I'm very excited to give my support tonight. And I'm sad that Brent Savadon's not here tonight to see it, because I bet he is too. But Ben, I'm glad you were here to do the opening presentation. I do want to also thank our city attorney, because the worst thing about being up here in a public meeting is trying to answer questions of the elected body that are legal in nature and what you can and can't say. And I appreciate your work behind the scenes from an attorney-client standpoint always, and of course what you've been publicly able to say and guide us, because it's been a process. You know, none of us up here have ever worked to approve a project of this scale. This is a transformational, once in a generation or more project for our city. So I think it's a huge, huge accomplishment, and I hope you leave here happy tonight, all of you. You won't. Attorneys are never happy when they leave. Oh, he smiled. They say, look at that. That's good. So, I'll take a picture. No, but honestly, this is a huge accomplishment for everybody in the city tonight. So with that, I'm going to call for the vote for Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. We've got a... Oh, I'm going to allow, if there's consensus, to give one quick final. Mr. Forbes, go ahead.
Final. This reminds me of my favorite Winston Churchill quote of all time. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Yeah. So thank you to all for enduring the pain of 20 years. We've been sitting there with that piece. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to keep going because we still have a full agenda.
Quite a few.
Good to see you. I'm sure we'll hear from you. Thank you. All right. You need a break?
Just one is okay.
Okay. All right. Next up is public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. There are 3 people signed up. One of them was Mary Ellen. She spoke earlier. The other, Joey Colby, I think he's also gone and he said his piece. And David Niffen, I don't see in the room anymore. All right. No need for reply then. No postponed items this evening. Regular business. First up, I-1 are board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments or city council appointments this evening. I-2 is board and committee nominations. I have no mayoral nominations this evening, and there are no city council nominations this evening either. We have no requests for closed session, so we'll move on to I-4, bid waiver, Troy Downtown Development Authority landscape improvements to Big Beaver and I-75 upper embankments. That'll be introduced by our Public Works Director, Kurt Bovensee.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I do have a short presentation, and I will try to keep it brief. I know we've all been here a long time. But just a reminder, the Downtown Development Authority approved a contract in 2024 to begin working on the landscape improvements that both the DDA approved and City Council conceptually. So OHM designed that. We did bid that out, and the diverging diamond interchange landscaping, the first bid came back and exceeded budget, so we needed to scale back. And one of the things that we did to scale that back was we focused on just Big Beaver, not the I-75 experience with those landscape improvements. So we really focused those landscape improvements on Big Beaver itself. Just a reminder, we are just talking about the landscape improvements in the diverging diamond, which is Big Beaver and I-75. So the original concept, again, included those upper embankments. You can see that experience from driving on I-75. Those are the sections that were omitted from the contract and valued engineered out back in 2024. Right there at the Big Beaver experience, you can see, and those upper embankments on the left side were what was cut. I did went out there today to take some pictures, some progress pictures, just if you haven't experienced it, just to see how close it's looking to those conceptual drawings that were approved a couple of years ago. So I think they're doing a great job. They are scheduled to be done with Big Beaver by June 30th. So we'll get those traffic disruptions to go away. Again, just looking at the experience from Big Beaver, I will shuffle through these rather quickly. This is as you exit I-75, southbound I-75 as you enter onto Big Beaver. So landscaping on Big Beaver is going. Again, the DDA is now in a financial position to be able to bring back those upper embankment part of the project. Warren Contractors is currently doing the construction right now. We've had a positive experience with them. They've kept a good schedule. The changes, when we look at construction management, one thing we look at the contractors is how many change orders do the contractors request. This particular contractor is not asking for a lot of changes. They've had some hurdles. They dealt with them themselves without actually asking for changes. So I think this is a good contractor. Probably the most impactful image that I'm going to show you tonight is the current condition of the upper embankments. I showed this to staff earlier, and they said, just lead with that, lead with that. So this is its its current condition with the MDOT tree planting guidelines there. So what we're asking today is actually to waive the bid process and continue on with Warren Contractors and Development for the reasons I listed, and also because they can start this project in August. So we're looking to have a quick turnaround on this project. Total cost all in with contingency is just over $2.3 million. The DDA does have $3 million budgeted in fiscal year 26 to continue on with the landscape improvements in the corridor. Schedule-wise, we're looking at start in August, end in November just for weather reasons, and we'll wrap up May 2026. Really, March through May of 2026 are just going to be those final plantings and final restoration. I know that was quick. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kurt. I just want to ask, I have answers to these questions, I think, but I just want to clarify, one, the DDA, I'm on the DDA, but so it feels very weird, but DDA's expectation is this is the next phase of construction. DDA signed off effectively on this is an effective use of their funding, correct?
That is correct. So it was a little unique where the DDA held the contracts for this past phase. Normally, the city would actually be the contract holder, and you would be the approving body because of essentially you are the approving body of the budget. It becomes very cumbersome with a board that only meets 4 to 5 times a year. So bringing the idea back into house where the city actually runs the contracts. This way, if there's an issue with contingencies where we have a problem with the project, I'm not waiting or calling a special meeting for the DDA. I come back to City Council. This was presented to the DDA, and the DDA is fully on board in support of the upper embankments being an important next phase of the landscape project.
Questions? Councilmember Hamilton, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Did you have a rendering of the upper embankment in there?
I did, yes. The first rendering is probably the...
Yeah.
Yep. So,
yeah.
So it's that I-75 experience that you're really going to, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to experience it from Big Beaver as that last image showed of its current condition, but the experience is going to be shared with the upper embankments between I-75 and Big Beaver.
Great, thank you. Perfect. When will be complete too? You said it'll start in August?
August, they'll take a break for the winter, final completion May 2026.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle.
Thank you, Mayor. I presume because it's up higher, there'll be a little less disruption to traffic, is that, or the same?
Great question. Nope, we should have a lot less disruption on Big Beaver. The shoulder on those off-ramps, those slip ramps are wider. We've been in communication with MDOT in the permitting process. Also, Warren Contractors is hopeful to use this area here as a staging area. So we're hopeful MDOT's going to allow that, so that'll even reduce additional equipment on those off-ramps. So there should be very limited disruption to traffic with this second phase.
Great. Small question. The small trees that MDOT planted there, are they going to be given back to MDOT to put somewhere else, or do we know what's
It's
gonna
in discussion right now. The actual MDOT, it's difficult to give anything back to MDOT because they don't know what to do with it. The subcontractor who is responsible for all the landscape is a contract-approved nursery. So he's actually suggesting that he accepts those and puts them at a separate project. But I will tell you, those small trees, all of them that can be salvaged will be salvaged. We just won't go in there and cut them and chip them.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yeah, that was kind of my question too. I mean, can we actually use it for the city, I guess, small trees, the MDOT, wonderful garden of MDOT, can we salvage and plant it somewhere else in the city instead of giving it to the?
Yeah, they are smaller. They're inch to inch and a half caliper, so they're smaller than what we would typically plant. So if there was opportunity, we would look at other like park areas, not necessarily in front of a resident's house, because we're planting much larger trees now. So that would be actually a downgrade from what we're offering now. But if there's opportunity, we can look at it in our parks to move some of those trees.
Okay. And in terms of the finance, it's still coming from DDA fund 100%.
That is correct. This is 100% financed with the tax capture through the TIF district, the DDA district.
For those who are watching, I mean, it is what we discussed in the budget meeting, but it's not from our general fund. So.
That is correct.
Okay,
yep,
thanks.
and we'll continue. We have signs out there that indicate that the beautification is from the downtown development.
Yeah, I've seen those, and I drive by that every day. I love it. I mean, what's happening, so thanks.
Any other questions? Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Hoderick?
I'll move I-4 bid waiver, Troy Downtown Development Authority landscape improvements to Big Beaver and I-75 upper embankments as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-4 bid waiver, Troy Downtown Development Authority landscape improvements to Big Beaver and I-75 upper embankments as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? It was a thumbs up, so I think that's the vote. Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Kurt. I-5 is a standard purchasing resolution 2, award to low bidder meeting specifications, firefighters park, Sprague drain, habitat improvement, and budget amendment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, again. I know I talked in the past couple meetings about career projects. This was about to turn into a career project, but very fortunate with our continuous nagging. Our consultant, Jamie Burton with HRC is here in case there's any technical questions on this project, but along with Mayor Baker reaching out to his contacts at Washington, D.C., we're able to get this funded because this is a federally funded grant, EPA, with the other partners you see up there on the screen. So we were very fortunate. We were actually verbally told that we had received the supplemental funding in December. And then we had to go through some hoops. We had to actually revisit how we wrote the plan to take out specific words. But we are grateful to receive that supplemental funding. I'm sorry, I do not have any pretty pictures for this one. We are on a shoestring budget on this project, so I will go over. So we're at Firefighters Park. Firefighters Park does have the Sprague Drain, which is a tributary to the Rouge River that runs through it. This project is designed to specifically look at the habitat of the Sprague Drain and improve it. So I'll go over a little bit in detail here. We are looking to take the existing detention pond that services the surrounding area and make it more of a native wetland area and increasing its storage capability. So right now we just mow the bottom of that pond. It gets wet. Sometimes we can't mow it. So it looks bad because the grass gets long. Well, now it's going to be more of a natural environment for the area. And this slide, we're also proposing to move the stream where its current location, and one of the reasons we're doing that is to salvage as many trees as we can. I know there was a lot of questions over the last year and a half. We did go in and remove some of the trees, and we just left them there. And constant questions and a lot of education to the public. Why aren't you guys cleaning up your mess? That mess is actually designed to be tow wood, so that will actually be shoved in the earth to help stabilize the stream bank. All the brush, all the wood out there will be used as part of this project. So it's really neat to see it kind of recycle itself. Again, we see this is a little further to the north. We see that stream bank moving out there a little bit to the east. And then probably one of the biggest concerns we get for Firefighters Park is all the invasive species. So what this map does is it shows you all the invasive control that we're going to do as part of the project. We're looking at buckthorn and Phragmites and garlic mustard, and so this contract will require the contractor to remove some of those invasive species along the Sprague Drain route. We did bid this out over a year ago, and we are very fortunate to have a contractor that is willing to support their pricing from over a year ago. There's not a lot of materials in this project, it's a lot of labor. He's losing about, he says roughly 2 to 3%, but he's willing to eat that to get this project. So what we have is we have the original remaining grant funding at just about $640,000. The successful in getting the additional approximately $750,000 from the EPA. There is a City of Troy contribution required for this project to meet that bid amount. And we look at this as, yes, this is a habitat project, but we are growing or increasing the storage capacity with this project for stormwater. Upstream of this project and Crabapple and other streets have experienced flooding and heavy rainfall. We're hopeful that creating additional storage downstream, we can collect some of that water and it's not going to back up upstream. So that's our justification for the requested amendment of $250,000 of city capital. So you can see those expenses. I know it gets a little tricky in the memo and in the resolution. It's been vetted by our CFO. We're taking money in, we're putting money out, and there's some amendments because we didn't know if this was going to happen, so we only budgeted partial, so there's a lot of things going on there, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just thought when I read this how amazing the city is involved in this habitat restoration work. I mean, this is total sustainability work. So thank you, Mayor, also for helping to make that possible through contacts. And I'm glad we're still getting the money in this environment of federal cuts. So that's great. The question is, it made me think, are there other areas related to the Rouge River in Troy where we've done this habitat restoration before? And
yes, Sylvan Glen Golf Course is probably the most, next biggest project that we did through there. That was 15, maybe even 20 years ago, the first phase, and then there was a second phase. We look at these projects and we have our consultants design them or look at them. So when there is grant funding available, because there's usually such a short turnaround time where we call them, shovel ready. They're not fully designed, but we've got a good idea where to make these requests. This particular project we started discussing back in 18 or 19, I think. So we had the idea in our head that we wanted, the funding became available and we were able to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Councilmember Chanda?
It's more of a comment, and Kurt and I were talking before the meeting. One of my family friends who lives on Crabapple were complaining about flooding, so hopefully this will alleviate some of that. And I looked at the budget. I believe we have about $200,000 for that particular purpose, like I think the Sprague River or whatever. So that's good work. I mean, it is environmentally sustainable work, but also flood alleviation, so drainage and everything. So I'm very happy to support. So, yep.
Any other questions? All right, I'll move I-5, Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, award to low bidder meeting specifications, Firefighters Park, Sprague Drain, Habitat Improvement, and Budget Amendment as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle, that we approve I-5 Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, award to low bidder meeting specifications, Firefighters Park, Sprague Drain, Habitat Improvement, and Budget Amendment. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'm glad to see this area of Troy getting some love when I know earlier we were talking about MDOT's trees, and I know our relationship with MDOT is hit or miss, but they've had to suffer from the I-75 noise, and now I know that's getting mitigated next year, I believe, and then they'll get hopefully a little bit of drainage relief here as well. So glad to support this, and great work by Kurt and the city to get the funding and you, Mayor Ricker, to get the funding and get this done. A lot of big stuff on this agenda today.
I know, it's funny that any other night, this might have been the big thing we were so excited about, right? But it is a great, I think it's a great mix of infrastructure and environmental sustainability and beautification and doing something really special for one of our parks. So I'm excited to support and approve it, and I appreciate the staff work that went into harassing people in Washington through an administration change, getting verbal approval in December with an outgoing administration, and then having the new administration come in, I think created an interesting set of facts. But I am, like you, thankful that we got EPA grant funds and an increased amount, no less. So it's very good and exciting stuff. Also looking forward to seeing it actually happen. And those piles of trees I'm tired of answering that question too. So it'll be great to see them in movement. So the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6 2025 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll be introduced by City Manager Nastasi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. With the new library, the information tonight, schematic design, and opinion of cost, it's important that Council consider meeting to discuss the 2025 bond proposal and the next steps. The timeline is constrained with the November 2025 ballot. So with the actual ballot language is due by August 12th, which is just 2 months away. So it's coming up on us very quickly. To stay on track, City Management recommends scheduling a special meeting on Monday, June 30th. We did send that scheduling poll out, and that's the most number of people that were available at the soonest opportunity. This is ahead of a regular council meeting, which is good. So this will give council time to continue the conversation and hopefully to meet that August deadline. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, City Manager Nastasi. Any questions? You want to move, or Councilmember Hoderick?
I move I-6 2025 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-6 2025 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
True to today, we have a lot of big items in this consent agenda too. We have road funding coming up for local road improvements for the next year. I always like to point these out when they come up. I see at the northwest corner at Waddles and Livernois, we have Hart, Webb, Paragon, Carter, Lang getting resurfaced. At Waddles and Adams, we have kind of the whole corner there. Chestnut Hill, Walnut Hill, Butternut Hill, Pine Hill, Juniper, High Lane, Bronson, which is where I used to live. And then Miracle, Scottsdale, Wendellton, Kirk, at Waddles and Livernois southwest corner. And we also have the police department roof, which thank you for getting that done. That was incredibly important. Public safety is always number one. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Any other discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks? Yes. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda this evening, all have been approved. We have no memorandums and future council agenda items to announce this evening, so we'll move on to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Mr. Colby, you are signed up, but actually you're not first. So I don't see David Niffen. Mr. Storrs is actually first signed up. He's waited this long. We better get him up here.
Yeah, Mayor Baker, members of Troy City Council. Yeah, the water boy from Sylvan Glen #3 is back again. Went down and talked to the Troy School District about a month ago, used the same pictures that you all by now have seen, and talked to them about some of the same suggestions, and they were going to get back to us. And so they said they had a meeting coming up with the city. So after a couple of weeks, I called Scott Finley to see if they discussed any of that stuff and how much. And it was kind of got the sense it was minimally discussed. And then I started getting some verbiage from Scott, like minimizing the stuff. And I taught you, if you remember, one of my big things about the drain was water should not be able to bypass it. Should not be able to bypass it. There should be some mechanism to make it go over the top if it's that high. and I asked him if he'd seen the drain. He said, yes, he had. So I said, well, we got a difference of opinion there. So we stopped talking at that point because I didn't figure he was going to listen. So anyway, now I get down here and I see this doggone thing. And it says that I wanted the inlet enlarged. And then he talks about standing water in the streets. I don't remember talking about standing water in the streets. I thought those pictures were pretty doggone clear and pretty logical as to what the problem ought to be. Now, so I got a problem with the Troy School District going back, trying to get to talk to somebody that's not an administrator, you know? And I can't get down to the working level of the people. And so, and then I get this, and my first reaction is, you know, this is bureaucratic whitewash that I've been experiencing in the city manager's office since December 2023. 2023, okay? And so, anyway, so let's see. Oh, I applaud Councilman Gunn. He came out last Tuesday, sent me a little text, said he was coming. So I went over and I joined him, and we spent about 15 minutes looking at it. It's just like the pictures, like you'd expect. And so, so then after the deal with the Troy School District, I said, well, wait a minute, fella. Why don't you go talk to the people in Troy that work the streets and drains on a regular basis? So this morning I went over to the DPW to see if I could get on Mike Verstraetz's calendar. And while I was asking the question why Kurt Bosenby came out, and we went over the pictures. Kurt already had the pictures, but they understood. They sounded very logical and understood what I was talking about, didn't have any problem, weren't minimizing anything, and I'm done.
He was self-timing, and he started 12 seconds late, so it was fine. It worked out. Thank you, Mr. Storrs. We'll address this in just a minute, but that's a lesson to any public comment right there. That timer was very good. Next up is Morgan Zach.
Hi, Mayor Baker, Councilwomen, Councilmen. I wanted to come back and stress the importance of taking action against puppy mills and the puppy mill pipeline in our city. There are 2 places in Troy that are considered pet stores that are documented to sell puppies from puppy mills, and they are the Family Puppy and Puppy Home Match. If you remember, we had discussed similar legislation that other communities have enacted. Specifically, Berkeley's had an existing pet store that they had to consider in their bill. I have reached out to you all with Berkeley's legislation, and unfortunately, there has been 0 follow-up. Additionally, national and local subject matter experts have offered their collaborative assistance to shoulder the workload, and that has been unacknowledged as well. But anyways, so I am here in hopes to get this legislation passed in our city, so we're not part of the problem. Again, if you remember, this pipeline is not good for our residents, the consumer especially, or of course the dogs a part of this process. The legislation is an important step to limit the economic feasibility of puppy mills by removing the main outlet of the puppy mill pipeline, of course. Please review Berkeley's bill and let's pass this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up is Joey Colby.
Hi, my name is Joey Colby-Bernert. I am a clinical social worker in the city of Troy. I'm actually here for a different request than you probably would expect. I'm actually here to ask for a troymi.gov/skate, which is a website or a web page for the Troy Skate Park. And I'd also like to see the naming of the skate park changed to be named after Mayor Ethan Baker. I wanted to bring my longboard and skateboard up here to show all of you, but that was not in the cards today given the rain. That being said, I've been skating since the pandemic. I have scraped knees, broke bones, cut my hands, been in the hospital. Most skaters have been through that, and as you know, that comes with the territory. As you know, skating is kind of still part of counterculture, and as a result, it's still kind of treated with suspicion and sometimes hostility. But the truth is, we're a community and we watch out for each other. We teach younger skaters what not to do, how to fall safely. I've got no worries about how the Troy Police Department treats skaters. In fact, I'm willing to bet that the chief of police could probably do a pop shove it better than I can. And so that being said, we don't have a direct way to communicate to you if something's broken, right? If there's infrastructure that's damaged, we're not gonna come in and fill out a form. And we're probably we don't wanna we wanna have a direct way to communicate to the city to let them know if there's unsafe conditions. I'm proposing this website, troymi.gov/skate, as a very simple page with basic information, how to report damage, what protective gear is recommended, the non-emergency line to the TPD, and a list of potential injuries that could occur when skating without protective gear, as well as, a link to local mental health supports. Skaters, how adolescents are. Skating's still counterculture. They're gonna be taking too many energy drinks. There might be cannabis or something there, and I wanna make sure that we have some way so that people who do skate can have mental health resources. You could literally just print a sign and put a QR code, and that just works. Now look, as for naming the park after Mayor Baker, look, some cities name bridges, some cities name libraries after mayors, but we're Troy, and we can do better. I want to see something that's named after him that there's scraped knees, broken bones, chipped paint, and zero pretension. I want something alive, something loud, something with a little risk that honors the grit and the service that Ethan Baker has provided to our city. And the intensity that he brings, the good intensity, the good energy. So please, consider this request, all right? Give us a voice. Help us keep each other safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now's an opportunity to reply. I'll start with the obvious. Well, maybe it's not the obvious. It's quite an arc we've had, Mr. Colby, because no, Hal, I appreciate it. I don't think it's on our agenda to name the skate park after me, but I will say we do have, you can log in online for our citizens request portal at any time through the MyTroy app or a regular internet and report any issue, safety or sidewalk related or skate park related. Having a different separate web page dedicated to the skate park is something that maybe administration can look at and talk about internally, but appreciate you coming forward. I'm taking myself out of contention for the naming of the skate park at this time. So, Mr. Source, this was a late submittal, this report. I'm reading through it. I read through it shortly before I got here and trying to read through it again. I don't want you to feel like this is bureaucratic trash, essentially. I think my understanding from what city management has shared with me and with us is that there is an increased effort, there is some potentially difficulty with the school district, and there needs to be something worked out. I'm a little bit, the next steps, the last couple paragraphs of this report talking about the 30 to 40, the old cost estimate for the new city's storm sewer master plan, and that deep discussion that needs to happen. I think that's fantastic. It definitely needs to happen. I guess I'm a little unclear how it relates to the situation that Mr. Storrs has been bringing forward to us. If there's nothing we can do or at this point as a city, that's one thing, but that doesn't seem right either for some reason. So I need to read this better. I need to have some more conversations, and perhaps there'll be some clarity and clarification, because it doesn't make sense to me that you have to come back, you don't come every meeting, but meeting after meeting, and show us pictures of clearly storm drains that are not functioning properly and putting properties at risk and causing problems in neighborhoods. So I also recognize the economic factors related. I recognized working with a school district. I need to dig a little deeper on some of this myself, okay? Additional council comments or reply? Councilmember Hamilton.
Didn't we agree a few meetings ago to look into the puppy mill ordinance?
City Attorney Bloom.
I forget.
Yes, that is something that, again, we were going to be doing. I know that you were going to refer to the Animal Control Appeals Board, and I know that they only meet a couple of times a year, and their last meeting was canceled. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And Ms. Zach, I'll search my emails. I don't recall seeing the Berkeley ordinance that you sent. I'm not sure it came through, because I see a shaking head over there as well. But maybe resend it to the city council email at troymi.gov, so we'll all get it in administration as well, would be my recommendation for review. All right. That concludes response and reply to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents or businesses. We have no council referrals this evening. We do have several reports, including the late submittal as just referenced. Any comments on any of these reports? Councilmember Hamilton.
There is a comment about TP, Public Library space needs. I'll save, as we talked about earlier, I'll save my comments for the meeting in 3 weeks. But for those looking through this, take a look at that, because it's an interesting perspective on what our space needs are for the library.
Thank you. Any other comments on the reports? Councilmember Hoderick.
I just wanted to note the letters of appreciation, the one to Renee Hazen and staff, and her customer-driven self. I love seeing that. I know that is common with the servant-hearted people that work in the city. I want to encourage it. It is so authentic to her, and I love seeing that letter in there. And it's authentic to so many of our city employees, and I guess I just wanted to make sure that folks know I do read those and do appreciate them, and I appreciate what she did for that person that came into City Hall.
Thank you. Additional comments on the report? All right. Council comments. Councilmember Brooks.
Council comments. Thank you, Mayor. So I have 3 comments. Basically, first, I'm wearing my orange today, and that is in recognition of gun violence awareness. Before I was on council, I came to the podium and I spoke about how in 2016, the American Medical Association declared gun violence a public health crisis, and that continues to be true. In 2024, the U.S. Surgeon General also declared gun violence a public health crisis. And the CDC recently published research demonstrating that gun violence is the leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 19 years old between the years of 1999 to 2020. So I just wanted to shine a light on that, as it continues to be an incredible issue facing many people in our society. Second, on a lighter note, I'm thankful for those who came out to the Run for Nature. I know a lot of us will probably talk about it, and the mayor ran, and Councilmember Chanda walked, and Councilmember Chamberlain Kringa's son also was in the Little Sprouts as well, which is in one. Oh, that's wonderful. But I'm thankful for everyone that came out to support. It's very important that we continue to support the Nature Center, as it is an incredible resource in our city. And third, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Father's Day, every father out there, and every father figure as well. So that's it.
Father's Day, not even on my radar yet. Well, good one. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll follow that because my comments, they mirror yours, Councilmember Brooks, so thank you. Also wearing orange just in recognition of Gun Violence Awareness Day, which was June 6th. Also going back to the Nature Center, Run for Nature, thank you, Councilmember Brooks. You serve on the board and all that you do, and Mayor, I mean, everyone's always, they're amazed by your voice. We say, no, Mayor, we'll ever have when you sing Pledge of Allegiance, it's, everyone who I was standing around residents are always very, very taken aback. But just, it was great to see almost everyone there. And I was proud of my son who won the Little Sprout race. He's found his thing running just like mommy, although I can't, because of an injury, I can't race like I used to, but it's great to see him take over. The last thing I wanted to share is, I mean, lots going on in June. So we're celebrating 70 years. Troy is 70. And I always say that starts kind of with Troy's Independence Day, as I like to call it, which was on June 7th. That was a day 70 years ago when people voted in Troy Township to become basically the city of Troy, to become incorporated. And then June 13th, which is I think when we're kind of using for the birthday, is a day when actually after a government was formed, they passed a charter, which actually really made us a city. So that's like Charter City Constitution Day on the 13th. And then I'll let the mayor share on the 14th. We're having a big celebration in the city, and I just hope everyone will come out to Junestein Pike. But you can share more, Mayor.
Yeah, all right. Additional council comments? I'll be quick. I'll pick up on that. There is 70th birthday party on Saturday, June 14th from 1 to 4 at the Gene M. Stein Community Park. We'll be under the pavilion. We'll be at the new stage. Over there, there'll be live music. I lost my cheat sheet that showed, oh, it's right in front of me. So live music. Bookmobile will be there from the library. There'll be cake. There'll be ice cream. There hopefully will be no rain. Last I checked, the rain was threatening us. I didn't like that, but a long time from now. But all kinds of fun things. It's really exciting to celebrate the city's birth. You were talking earlier, Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, about the growth of the city in 70 years, and I'm amazed by what has changed in this city. It was founded essentially as a township more like 200 years ago, but the city, the rapid growth really has occurred in the past 50 years, but 50 to 70 years once it became a city, and it's fun to be able to celebrate, and I'm hoping that people will appreciate it for what it is and take some pride in their city and come out and check it out. And I also am hoping, and I think that this might actually bring new people to the pavilion and the rink and that stage that haven't seen it yet. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I've had a couple of people ask me, wait, where is that? So it's good news to do that. So we'll be celebrating the city's birthday. The Run for Nature, the Nature Center 5K, I do love to see our community come together to support our nature center, to be out, just being together on a morning, appreciating the Troy Farm, the Troy Nature Center for what it is, for the Stage Nature Center. And the support, the financial support, of course, is also really, really important. I also appreciate that because Councilmember Chamberlain Craig is injured, I'm again the fastest member of City Council. And that was a long time banner I had, and then all of a sudden I had to start singing so I could compete. But no, I appreciate.
I haven't beat my time.
Still, I'll never beat her time. Yeah, right. But no, in all honesty, it is fun just to see the different people that show up to this event. And there are people running and walking through that represent everybody in our city. I mean, from age, from demographics, from ethnicities, and just everything. It's really cool to see everybody come together and have a good time. But we're thankful for the Nature Center and of course the board, but that they continue to work so hard, as an independent nonprofit, essentially, to make sure the programming continues out there, and we do our role as a city to maintain the grounds as best we can. So it's a great partnership, but I think those are my only two comments, mostly fun stuff. Yeah, thank you. All right. We do have somebody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. So I will call on Matthew. My eyes are not. Capsia? Oh, all right. It was about backflow testing, so. from outside the community. Interesting. All right, so that there's no one else to speak. We have no closed session this evening, so we're adjourned.